mic on. There we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our August Ways and Means meeting. If you'll please rise with me and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Well, I think everyone's here and we have a quorum, obviously, so. Do we have an approval, changes or approval to the agenda?
One change, we're adding MERS delegate forms under miscellaneous. Other than that, the other items in red were added because they were referred from committee after the original agenda posted. And then the refund under construction code, so we can have that discussion. Those are the changes.
Okay, I'm gonna throw something else out there. Item 8. Or number 8, items A through H. These are all moved out of committee and we have a long meeting ahead of us. So in the interest of expediting our meeting, I want everyone to take a look at those items and see if there's anything that needs to be discussed independently. If not, I would like to consider moving those as a slate.
Mr. Chair, can you move the grant applications separately from the others, but I would have no objection to pairing those two groups.
Okay, which item is that?
You've got 3 resolutions for grant applications, F, G, and H.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so it's been considered that we would move items A, B, C, D, E, F, or excuse me, E together. And then consider items F, G, and H separately. Is that correct, Mr. Shaver?
Or you could group F, G, and H,
Okay.
whatever is pleasing to you. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. We have a motion on the floor to move these items A, B, C, D, and E together, and then items F, G, and H together, separate from the other. Is it, any other comments?
I think it's, you have a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
Right, yeah. So we've got an, okay,
you're amending
so we need an amendment on that.
Okay, I move the amendment, I move an amendment to the agenda to address A, B, C, D together. And for the second, F, G, H.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor of the amendment to the, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. Now on to the original question. Now we will move with the amended agenda. All in favor of the amended agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, thank you. Any other changes or additions? All right, we're moving forward then. Approval of the minutes. We have 2 minutes, July 10th, regular meeting, and July 24th, budget meeting minutes, and we would move those together. All those in favor, say aye. Oh, we need an motion, don't we? Who's going to move that? Commissioner Haskell?
I second.
Okay, Commissioner Wright. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, any opposition? Okay, we are now down to statement from the Chair of Ways and Means, which is me, and I have it here with me. Eden County has been through a lot over the past several years. Our employees and residents have felt the impacts of some very, very difficult financial decisions and the uncertainty that comes with it. After years of challenges, I believe that we are finally on the right path toward long-term stability for the first time in decades. This budget process has been thorough, deliberate and at times difficult, but the board has worked to balance fiscal responsibility with maintaining the services dependents or residents depend on. At the last budget meeting, a motion was brought forward to require an additional 2.5% cut across the organization. That motion did not have the support of the committee and failed. As we move forward or toward completing this budget, I want our employees and our community to know that we recognize how much has already been asked and that our focus now is on building a stable, sustainable financial culture for the county. So let's get this budget done. So we've had a lot of concerns about that proposal. It will not be considered. So when we have item, where are we at here? The elected and department head of comments, just bear in mind that we don't need to address that because we're not going to consider it. All right? Thank you for allowing me to make that statement. So we are now on to limited public comment. If you'd like to address this committee, please step forward to the podium. You have 3 minutes. I recognize this person.
Hello, my name is Jackie Blanc. I'm a resident of Eaton County and voted for the Park Millage. And I know there's a concern about the Fox Park Observatory and the building itself. I worked for the county as a naturalist and operations manager and wore many, many hats through the 33 years that I worked for you, or for us. And one of those things was, I can tell you a little bit about the history of that building. That building was built by a private organization on parkland. There was an OMU with that private group. The staff, we had nothing to do with that building at all for many, many years. And then in 2004, they kind of started dwindling away, their group. We were approached, the next director that I worked for, we were approached by one of the remaining key holders of the building. He was worked for LCC as the astronomy professor, and they turned over the building and the contents, which we had an inventory of at that time, to us. And I was tasked as a naturalist at the time to do programs out there. I had some experience with astronomy 101 at college, so I was limited and tried to work with him a little bit to learn more about some of their equipment. At that time, he connected me with another one of their past group members, and that person, I basically kind of conned him into becoming a volunteer for us. We had a number of volunteers. We had volunteers for our nature centers. We opened our nature center at Fitzgerald and Lincoln Brick 3 days a week, Saturdays, Sundays, and Wednesdays from 1 to 5. And so we kind of did the same thing with him. Him and I both worked together when we had the open nights in the beginning. So the naturalist was there the whole time, every time it was open. And we charged $2 per person, $5 per family, but it was an open house type thing. And it was really kind of difficult to get everybody when they're coming and going, and it's fairly dark in there. We try for the observatory. So we started doing more of a account where they put it in a box. We kind of trusted them. We actually made more on that than by collecting, because some people gave more than others. But that all went to the naturalist programming. Over the years, because of Jason's connection, the volunteer, having other people that were also astronomers and interested in that, he was able to bring in some of the additional volunteers. They now have 9 volunteers. One of them is an astrophysicist, just to give you an idea of what we got going on out there. We continued to have myself go out there at the time as a naturalist for many years, and then Jason actually needed a little extra income with one of his job opportunities. So he actually he actually applied and was hired as a seasonal employee one summer for us as a part-time job for him. And so the director at the time said, well, he can just run it those nights in the summer with the volunteers. You don't need to always be there. And we started kind of doing that. And then another director decided that I didn't need to be there, our staff didn't need to be there some of the days at all, because we ran the nature centers without staff being there, and it was a similar situation. So these people were always volunteers for the parks. The building was always the responsibility, once it was turned over to us, to be maintained and managed by the park itself. And I just wanted to bring that to attention, because I know that there's some repairs that need to be done, and there was discussion on them becoming a separate group and paying for some of this and those kinds of things. All the monies always went to the parks until just a couple directors, just 3 directors ago, I guess. Once the millage passed, he said that any donations in that box needed to go to the Friends of Eaton County Parks. So before that, though, it went to, as a naturalist program and a fund. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and also wanted to mention that when people do in-kind service in the state of Michigan right now, the going rate for in-kind service is $33 and some odd cents. In 2022, it was like $30, a little over $30. So if you figure they do 2 nights or 2 weekends a month, Fridays and Saturdays, plus they do some daytime events with the sun. They have solar scopes as well. They've done some special events for us. So I'm just counting the 48 days of those when they do the 2 times a week. You times that by the number of people at 4 hours a time. They're bringing their in-kind services to us as citizens is $46,080. So I feel that it's well worth it, and we get people from all over coming to Eaton County to see this. And when they come here, then they want to explore our other parks. They spend money in our restaurants. They spend money around town, or our citizens themselves. This is a very unique thing. There's very, very few public observatories anywhere in the United States, and I probably went over my time. I didn't set a timer, I'm sorry. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jackie, appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak to this committee? Another from me. That's all right, Katie, take your time.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Bessard, Potterville, Michigan. Many of you I have the privilege of knowing, some of you I don't know as well. But I will just say I am here mostly to speak about the budget. I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. Some of you know I've served in local office for about 10, 12 years now in various capacities with city council, school board, as a GDA director. I understand this type of budgeting and the challenges that it presents. I understand that you're dealing with people's livelihoods and lives, and also critical public services in many cases. There's tough decisions to be made. And yet, at the same time, the residents of Eaton County, through ballot initiatives and other things, have asked the county commission to make some really tough decisions in recent years. And as we look at our financial health, I would just encourage you that this is a good start, but I think there's some key areas that we can do better. As I look at principles of good government and spending within your means and a balanced budget and planning to reduce deficit and eliminating liabilities that aren't funded so that everything is fully funded, it begs the question of how do we start to get there? And I would just like to point out, I took a look at the county budget that's proposed, and currently about 70.17% of the budget goes towards what is definitely our biggest asset, towards people and the benefits that support those people and their salaries. But 70.17% far exceeds the national average. In county government nationwide, the average of what is spent on that category is about 55%. We are more than 15% above average. And I'm not saying that our staff are paid that much above average, but we do need to evaluate where we have people positioned and whether or not that is truly serving the, at this point for the county, the essential needs of the people, and see if we can bring that number better into balance. And looking further, one of the biggest departments there, where the biggest department is public safety and the sheriff's budget. And I am a big fan of supporting law enforcement. However, looking into their budget a little bit more, it looks like there's over $5 million spent in administrative cost. That equates to 42.28% of the sheriff's department budget, 42% spent on administration. Now, normally, healthy administration numbers are about 10%, maybe 15%. In a very small business or small organization where you can't scale to economy and you have people doing multiple jobs, sometimes that number hits closer to 20 or 25%. Our county sheriff's department has 42.28% administrative cost. We are top heavy. And just like the school budget, when we have to balance it, we have to look at administration before we look at taking teachers out of classrooms. Before you look at taking, guys off the road, we need to look at administration and find some reasonable cuts there. I would suggest that administrative, well, actually, I'll hit one more point. I see you guys also have a MERS presentation in here. And as you look at the MERS charts and graphs, you see where we are and you see the projection that the gap between what's funded and what's unfunded is projected to grow over the next several years. And one of the biggest financial liabilities for this county already is MERS. And we've had a history of problems with that for the whole time I've lived in this county. And if we're going to really address that, we need to start closing the gap, not looking at projections and accepting projections where they grow. If that gap is continuing to grow, then we're doing something wrong. And I would suggest that if we could look at the sheriff's department administrative budget, find a way to cut that by 50% this year and maybe an additional 25% next year, that would start bringing us into that 10 to 15% administrative cost that would be healthy. And we could start shifting that money to closing that balance with MERS. We need to take care of our employees, but one of the best ways to do that is to make sure that our employees, when they retire, actually get the benefits that they agreed to work for. And that means funding MERS. It also means funding their retiree health benefits. And I believe there's some unfunded liabilities there. But we need to start bridging those gaps. And I know it means hard decisions today, but that will set us up for long-term success in the future. I would also say this budget overall represents about a 10% cut over what's been done in the last few years. And I know, again, I know many of you guys, and I've talked with many of you about, how you guys are making tough decisions, and we've cut the budget more than ever in recent years. But then we find ways to add it back. And we keep adding little bits and pieces back. We need to stick with some cuts and tighten our belts because it is truly the best thing to build a sustainable and thriving Eaton County. If I can hit two other things really quickly, I think there are some smart things in your packet today. I see there's some also cuts to costs for construction code permitting. And while you're cutting costs and those costs do help fund services, and that's important, I think I support cutting those even in a tight budget time because those cuts can help incentivize building new property, expanding the worth of property. And at the end of the day, that's going to come back to the county and local government in improved tax revenue and things like that. And it's also going to incentivize new building. And it might be a small thing, but whatever we do to incentivize affordable housing, incentivize new business coming here and building, those small things do make a difference. The last thing I will hit on as we talk about the budget and cuts, I would also encourage you guys to look at things that might not be 100% necessary. Things like we have a communications director. In the 10 years I've been in local government, I've always had to represent myself to my constituents. You guys can do that too. So can our departments. And I would just look at some of the things, even the comptroller's budget has a $2.3 million budget, and they have quite a few attorneys on staff. Are they all necessary? Is that the best place to spend those resources? These are tough decisions, but this budget does merit further cuts. I wish you guys would consider the 2 to 3% cut or even a bigger cut to each department, because we need to get on the right track faster, or we will never fund those unfunded liabilities in a timely manner. I know this is difficult, but I hope you guys keep doing the hard work. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address this committee? All right, seeing none, let's move forward to item 8. And we will consider items A, B, C, D, E together.
I'll move them as a slate.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, and then on to items F, G, and H. We'll move those together.
I'll make the motion to move it so we can open discussion.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No. Okay, did I hear 2 noes? Okay, how about we do a roll call on that one?
Commissioner Shaver. Commissioner Haskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Pearlwright.
Yes.
Commissioner Moudry.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes. Commissioner Barber. Commissioner DeRosa.
Yes?
Passes.
Thank you. On to item 9, external presentations, MERS. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for allowing me to be here. Again, my name is Marnie Daggett. I know most of you have met me or are familiar with me from the past years. I'm trying to get connected to your screen, so give me a second to do that. As we're waiting, I know that Ben shared with me that you guys have gone over the annual valuation and things like that, so I was gonna just do a high-level overview. We're gonna see if we can't figure this out, because I don't know what else to do. Should I unplug it and replug it in? Okay. Yeah, we're good. But just do a high-level overview, and then find out if there are any questions. Okay, do you want to pull it up, Jared? Okay, perfect, thank you. I can unplug, so it.
Before we get started, I'm going to ask that you speak directly into that microphone.
Okay.
Please, thank you.
Absolutely. So we're going to go to page 6, which is in your packet, which just talks about the funding level of Eaton County. As you did a lot of hard work in the year of 2025. So you move from 60% funded to 64% funded from 24 to 25 with that additional contributions and the extension amortization that we worked through last year. And so, and then also the good returns that were happening last year. So those are all positive things to move that 4%, which is significant. The next page just shows the conversation that we had around additional contributions. So October of 2026, your contributions will be a little bit different than what that says based on that. But this for 2027 is what I'm focusing on, where it goes down to that 6.5 million for required contributions. I know that you have a plan, as we've mentioned and talked through in the past with that extended amortization, to also put in additional contributions. And I know I've been working with Ben as well to get those additional contributions. And so that will impact, from a budget perspective, that will impact you in a more predictable way, so that budget, instead of being around 8 million, is going to be closer to 6.5 million for the next year. So wanted to bring that to your attention as well. Then we get into some of the assumptions that are changing based on dedicated gains and the smooth value of assets. So we're going to go to page 9. There we go. Perfect. You're faster than me. Thank you. Where we talk about, as I mentioned, the return was last year was very well. The actual market return was 15.25%, which is higher than the assumption rate of 6.79, or what used to be a 6.93. So the smooth rate of return this time was 8.18, which means it was higher than the assumed rate, which has moved from 6.93 to 6.79 due to dedicated gains. So remember, from a dedicated gains perspective, that's any higher returns above that assumption. We use half of those gains to buy down that assumption. So that's what happened. We moved from a 6.93 to a 6.79, and still the smooth rate of return was at 8.18. It's still lower than the 15.25 because we're still in that smoothing of 2022, where that was a -10. So again, we're spreading that out over 5 years. So we have 1 more year left of that negative return that we're still smoothing out. So that's why you see that smooth rate at 8.18. even though the market return was 15.25. Okay. The next thing that we'll go over is page 12, which I think kind of is the conversation that we go from a long-term perspective. The top graph simply shows that blue line where it shows that contributions and additional contributions and where you're funded at 64%, and how the forecasted growth is that you will get up to 100% funded right around 2037. So you can see that 2037, 2038, again, the world will see where it all goes. But essentially, that's where you're forecasted to go due to growing to that better funding level. The bottom graph shows what those contributions will do. And you'll notice that, again, we were in the $8 million starting range, and now we're at the $6 million because of that work that you did last year. So that's kind of lowering that projected increase over time. Any questions on that? Because I know that that's a pretty key chart, and it's kind of what you've been working on for the last few years to work on that contribution lowering and putting additional in to kind of help that unfunded liability. And you've seen progress on that. So it's always nice to see the progress.
I don't see any questions.
Any other questions? Because that's kind of the high-level overview. We could certainly go through table 5, excuse me, 5 and 6. That are probably the last high-level piece. That's page 22. Where it just shows the cash flow. Again, we always go over this one. In 2025, the employer contributions were required at $7.3 million. You put the additional $4.1 million. Plus the employees' 1.7 million contributions. That actually made the cash going in before investments be higher than the benefits going out the door, which is a good story, which Eaton County hasn't had in the past. So that's really good from a progress perspective. And then the income investment assets were 9.7 million. So the total unfunded liability on the next page. So what is the goal that you're working towards? Again, that total unfunded liability, if you look on the bottom line, the total funding percentage is 63.9%, so the total unfunded liability is 73.8 million. Any other questions for this?
Commissioner Haskell.
I don't know if this is who should be the best one to answer this, but I remember, Ben, was, I think, 1 or 2 meetings back, there was a graph that we had kind of showed where, before we reached 100%, there was a milestone that we were kind of looking for where like we kind of anticipate that a lot of the investments and the returns and stuff like that actually help smooth the burden on us and the input. Is that
Yeah, so that's more an internal piece, but the discussion I
Okay.
was having with the board was you want to get to a place where you have enough assets that your earnings pay for your benefit payments. If we cross that threshold, and you have bad years and good years, but if you have a, say, a 6.7 return year and you have enough investment revenue that it paid for all the benefits that went out the door, that is a really sound place to be, because then you're not making up that shortfall in a bad year with contributions out of your budget, right?
So if I look back on page 12, the funded percentage graph, would that be that green vertical line that we're looking at there, the 2040, 2041?
So I believe that's more PA 202. That's kind of baseline. If you go below the 60%, you have to file reports with the state and have an action plan. And we had just dipped to 59 under our audit numbers, which is what the state bases that off of. So we did file our action plan documents last fiscal year, but we are going to be well above that as we continue to move forward with this budget and the 1.8 million that was set aside in the current fiscal year plus the 1.5 for next. I would imagine that we'll have a also favorable report next year showing a climb in our assets.
No, I agree. I'm talking about the vertical green line. So I think it looks like in the year 2040 or 2041, there's a vertical green line on that graph. And I
That
see,
still has to do with PA 202.
okay,
So it's just PA 202 was stating you have to be 60% funded and you have to be at 60% funded or above that by that year.
Oh,
essentially.
okay.
So that is for those groups that are struggling to get that, and it clearly shows that MERS's amortization schedule, even with your extended amortization schedule, will get you there before then.
Okay.
Get you to 100% before then. So that was the goal of PA 202, is to get to that higher percentage by then. That's what that vertical line represents. Absolutely.
fantastic. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a general question. I'm sure that within all the plans that are, the hundreds of plans that are being managed, and how many of them are defined, what percent is defined benefit now?
I don't have that off the top of my head because it depends on if they're active or closed or all of those things too. So I don't have those numbers off the top of
Active?
my head.
How many active plans?
I don't have that, I don't have those
don't have
numbers.
that.
No, I wouldn't know that.
Because I'm thinking that there's going to be some, we're working hard, and they have a plan on how to build in some extra funds. But there's going to be other of our smaller counties and municipalities that aren't going to be in that position. So I was just wondering how many DBs were out there that were active, and what do they perceive is going to be the situation when they can't meet those numbers?
Yeah, I would say that we've actually seen quite a upswell towards defined benefit being much better funded. I think PA 202 was a driver to kind of highlight some of those things. And also our dedicated gains and some of the changes to our amortization schedule over the last 15, 20 years. And so I think from a perspective, there is fewer issues with that funding level. We're seeing the average of funding levels for defined benefit going up, actually. And we see some of the groups that closed to, there's a few, it's a smattering of a few that closed to defined contribution years ago that are opening up to hybrid or actually reopening to a DB at this time. So it's actually kind of a change in the landscape of things.
You said that last year.
Yeah.
It was said at the conference.
Yes.
We're opening DBs.
Yeah,
Thank you, Marnie.
absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay,
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item 10, Public Defender's Office, Transition Plan and Recommendation.
So this is a formal outline of what we've discussed in some of our prior meetings, but all laid out from inception idea of memo to contract to just like how we're planning to go through it. And Matt is here to speak on it as well, so we can have discussion. But think that we have a viable path forward, and the state MIDC agrees, and so let's talk. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Good morning. Thanks for having me. So we did provide a office transition memo to the committee, but I kind of want to summarize a little bit about how we got here and then kind of moving forward what that's going to look like. Everybody knows kind of how we got to this point, right? 6 or 7 months ago, we came in and kind of restructured the office a little bit, and we were able to do some really great things. And that first meeting that we had, Controller Dawson was there as well, and we kind of laid out the groundwork of what the expectations were for our office moving forward. And what is inherent in the work that we do is it is confrontational, right? There are times where we may not agree with the prosecutor's office may not agree with us. And one of the things that I imposed on the staff is we're going to remain professional, we're going to do what we need to do, we're going to be cordial. Anything that we've got to do is going to happen inside the courtroom, and then after that, we're going to work and we're going to be as professional as possible. And I think we've been able to do a lot of that, right? The reality is over a third of the Eaton County residents qualify for a public defender. So in the sense that a third of your constituents get charged with a crime, they would qualify for our office. It's actually going to be higher than that because there is a debt-to-income ratio standard that goes with it. So for example, we had a high-level professional who was charged with a crime in Eaton County, made well into the 6 figures, but they qualified for a public defender because they didn't have any money in the bank and their debt exceeded their income. So in Eaton County, it does get up to about 45% of the people who are charged with a crime are going to come into our office. And so we need to conduct ourselves in a manner that everyone is proud of the office when, in the event one of your friends or acquaintances or family members are unfortunately charged with a crime, they have good things to say. So since we've got here, we've done some really great things. We've had 167 dismissals, not cases, and that doesn't mean that we won every case. That means there were negotiations in cases with the prosecutor's office where it was determined that a dismissal of a count or 2 would result in a resolution that was just for the individual. That takes cooperation from our office and the prosecutor's office for that to happen. We've had some cases that were dismissed outright for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's witness issues, sometimes it's motions. But the point is, of that number, is that there are active negotiations going on between our office and the prosecutor's office that allow exactly what our Constitution requires, which is for the defendant to have an advocate, which is our office, and then the prosecutor's office to do what's best for the victims in the state of Michigan. And if I think I said this at a prior meeting, if we do our job the way we're supposed to do it and the prosecutor's office does their job the way they're supposed to do it, the result typically comes. So that is kind of what we've been doing from a negotiation perspective. We've filed some motions challenging constitutional issues. Some of those were dismissed prior to those issues being litigated in court. Again, all good things. It shows that the system is working. It shows that our office is working. We've tried 4 cases. 50% of those cases ended with convictions as the person's been charged. The other 2 ended with a not guilty or convictions less than what that person was charged. Again, just shows that the office is working and that we're doing our due diligence and that we are representing the people in the way that we need to be representing them. Yesterday, we had an issue at the jail where the Sheriff's Department contacted me because somebody was in the jail, they needed some assistance, and I was able to communicate with Chris Anderson yesterday. And between the 2 of us, the Sheriff's Department, CMH, all of the stakeholders, we were able to do what was best for that individual, and they are receiving the help that they need this morning, in part because of the Sheriff's Department working together with the prosecutor's office, working together with my office and CMH. Again, just shows that everything is working the way that it should be at the current moment. So the question is kind of moving forward, how are we going to make this work? And I provided a graphic, I believe that's here as well, and also an oversight plan. What the plan is, the plan moving forward is going to create an executive team which would involve me, Steve Milks, and Robert Palmer. And what the 3 of us would be doing is essentially everything that's required for the public defender, the deputy public defender, and a senior assistant public defender. The difference between our office and the prosecutor's office is we have standards that are imposed upon us by MIDC, which are directly tied to our ability to receive funding. And given the nature and age of our office, unfortunately, we don't have anybody yet who is able to satisfy the requirements under Standard 7 that would allow them to take a felony that would be 5 years maximum penalty or higher, which is a very, very small percentage, right? 5 years or less on felonies is a very, very small percentage. So because of our experience, we are able then to continue to be involved and mentor the people that are currently there that have put in the work in the last 6 or 7 months to do the things that I just described and move them up internally. We don't have any additional lawyer spots available. We are staffed fully, and the people that we have there are really buying into what they need to do to get the experience that they need. So we would serve as co-counsel in any case that comes through the public defender's office, in any felony case that is represented by somebody within our office. Because we're listed as co-counsel, we satisfy Standard 7. Those people get the experience that they need moving forward, which will then move them up the chain. And the goal is eventually to lift the people that are in there to a level of experience that they can eventually take over the office and run as the public defender or the chief public defender. We would still be maintaining all of our requirements from a leadership perspective, either office management, hiring, employee issues, employee concerns. We would have bi-monthly meetings with the controller's office to keep them involved and keep them informed as to what's going on. I can unequivocally say that nobody is going to notice anything different from the court, from the prosecutor's office, from the sheriff's department. We are still going to be running the office, only not as full-time employees. The people inside our office are still going to be working the way that they've been trained to work over the last 6 or 7 months. Our systems that we have in place, from our case management system all the way down to the way our office is structured, allows for this type of system to continue to work. In talking with MIDC, they are satisfied that this is the path moving forward, and frankly are watching to see how successful this is, because they think this could be adaptable across other counties and other systems, especially those counties that are rural in nature or have smaller PD's offices. So this could be something that could kind of set the trend moving forwards for some other counties that are similarly situated. They also have enough faith in our system that they've reached out and asked if our administrator would work with other counties' PD's offices, from instructing them and teaching them on our case management system, how our office flows, and the structure of our office as well. And they've asked me to come talk to some other PDs about it. So this system is going to work. I'm going to ask that you do adopt the system. The contract that we have proposed would require certain things, which are depicted on the graph up here. We would be in the office, physically in the office 20 hours a week, not each, but collectively. That we determined this schedule here based on the court schedule. Monday mornings are typically when felonies are heard in the district court, so we would have somebody there. Tuesdays are misdemeanor days, so we would have somebody here in the district court helping the lawyers, which is no different than we've done before. Thursdays and Fridays are, Thursday afternoons, there is no court, but it's a great opportunity for us to continue our felony and misdemeanor meetings and case reviews, so we would like to keep that schedule consistent. And then Friday mornings are felony cases as well. So what we've typically done in the past is we've had one lawyer sit in Judge Cunningham's courtroom, myself, Rob, or Steve, and the other lawyer would sit in Judge Morton's courtroom to provide oversight and then case input. And then obviously we would be available remotely. The assignment of cases, because we are concerned about case counts, we can't have just 2 lawyers be responsible for all felony cases that come through. So we've laid out how the case assignments are going to go moving forward there in the middle. I've highlighted the case count standards under Standard 6, the case count requirements under Standard 6, and then I've addressed Standard 7 already to you guys initially in the issues that we have there if we had to step aside. Essentially what that would mean for this office is the office would have to go back to what it was before, which is essentially a PD and an administrator just farming cases out to a conflict list, and that would not serve the constituents, and it would frankly not serve the court. So I don't know if there's any other questions that anybody has, but I would be happy to answer those.
Okay, any questions for Matt? Commissioner Haskell.
Thanks for the presentation, Matt. And you may have said this, and I was trying to digest everything, looking at it, but for the in-office kind of schedule and alignment you have, like, how does that differ from what you currently have presence now in the office?
So right now, we're all in the office 40 hours a week, right? And so this requirement would not, the schedule that we have would not require us to be in the office 40 hours a week. It would be kind of chunked out in the time that I've indicated here. The reality is, is we're going to be involved a lot more than what is listed on the schedule. Because even now, right, if we're not in the office or we're gone, to a meeting or something like that, we continue to communicate. But the point of being in the office, and one of the things that we frankly like, and I also underestimated, is the amount of discussion that occurs in our office from the lawyers that are there. I was saying to somebody the other day, right, if I can get 30 minutes, or if Steve or Rob can get 30 minutes alone to focus on something, that's a good day, right? And so I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. That's what we want, right? That means lawyers are looking at their cases, they've got questions, and instead of trying to figure it out on their own or create an issue, they're coming in to talk to us. So the purpose of those 20 hours is to be here when we have to be under Standard 7, right? To provide oversight when the court is at its height, right, scheduling-wise. And then also we picked Thursdays to be an all-day day because court is typically light those days, and we have a majority of our meetings those days. So that would allow us to sit in there and essentially do the mentorship piece in an entire 8-hour block in one time.
And then I guess follow up with some of it being in and out and remote. Are there ever any concerns over confidentiality issues, being able to work remotely? And, I guess I'll just stick with confidentiality issues.
Sure. No, because of the systems that we have, and I've talked to Eric Daly about it as well. Our case management system is currently, it's Clio and it's stored in the cloud, but it's secure. It's not like anybody can go in and get it. And we're going to keep that those login credentials for us. So everything PD office related will stay where it currently is now. As well as our county emails would stay currently housed with Eric. And then the system Teams is what we use to communicate from an interoffice, like texting type system. That would stay with Eric as well. And we would be able to access those remotely in the same secure environment as if we were sitting in this building.
Commissioner Wright.
Okay, so, you've taken this to your state people, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so, they don't have any problem of going from a 40 to a 20 hour in the office. And is this going to be like a trial situation so that if you need to, we can go back to more hours in the office or something? Or is this going forward totally? I mean, I'm trying to figure out if you've got clients and things like that that need more in-depth time that you have to work with them.
Yeah.
How would you do that?
Sure.
Some cases aren't going to be, some of them are going to be more simple, shall I say, than others.
Right. Yeah. So I'll chunk those out, chunk out your questions. The first was about MIDC. Yes, the MIDC is on board. They are, like I said, they're going to see how this works because they may want to adapt this to some other counties. They're fine with the schedule that we've put in place. They're welcoming of kind of the system. We have been in pretty significant contact with them throughout the last month, I would say, and again this morning, just on this, how this will work. So they are in full support of it, I guess is the easiest way to put it. The next question is this a test case? So the way that we've kind of rolled this out is my transition date essentially would be the first day would be the 24th. And then 2 weeks later would be Steve Milks' transition date. And then the end of September would be Rob Palmer's transition date. We're doing that for a number of different reasons. One, so we can continue to work out some of the kinks as we go along. Our office internally has already changed some of our processes to adapt to this before we brought this to Ben, just to make sure that there's nothing that we're overlooking. And the hours is a little bit interesting because we're gonna be taking cases, right? So to answer your question, which accounts towards the complexity of a case. If there's a client that needs us for meetings, or we get a police report, or the case is a homicide, which is far more involved than a traffic infraction, right? We are responsible to that person on that case as if we were somebody who was on the conflict list from the appointed counsel list. So that does not include this 20 hours. That would be over and above, and that would be to represent the clients on that case. And also, it is a requirement for us, me, Steve, and Rob, to, in those events that we have a high-severity felony, to have somebody who is in our office currently involved with us every step of the way on that case, so they continue to get the experience that they need to move up the standard 7 ladder to eventually be able to do these things on their own. So we've kind of accounted for both. The office hours is for the mentorship and everything else we need to do for other people in the office for their cases. And at the same time, we're gonna be having people on our own cases and individual lawyers with us on those, and that is separate and apart and in addition to the office hours that we have listed here. And then the support staff, which I didn't bring up, the support staff as it is now is gonna stay in place. So everybody is gonna stay that came with me, everybody's gonna stay that was hired in when my tenure here. So I've said it before, and I don't know if they're watching, but they are the most important people in our office. It's no offense to the lawyers that are there. So the fact that they're all gonna stay is extremely beneficial, and all the lawyers that are there are also going to remain and stay. So.
We'll continue monitoring this, and, you know, if we have the opportunity, we can always go back to in-house models. So the way the contract is written as well, there's the ability to do that in like transition periods of 90 days built into it. So if we did have a candidate who just moved back to Michigan, was bar certified, and was like, I'd want to hit the ground running. So there's opportunity within that. From a budgetary standpoint, those 3 positions go vacant. So then if we end up having to do more contractual service on felony cases, that's how those are getting funded instead of having those 3 FTEs. But in terms of our grant with the state, we're holding those positions there so that we can revert back to that model in the future, if that's what we end up being able to do. But over time, if we end up finding this is a model that works better. So I think one of the reasons MIDC is looking at it is up in the UP, you have a lot of smaller communities that don't have the resources to have a full-blown office. And so if like a resource sharing mechanism like this works, they might be able to roll it out to like other areas of the state that would benefit from it. So I think that's one of the reasons they're curious to see if it's how it goes.
There's also no implication to the general fund here either, right? Just to make that really clear, we're just moving essentially MIDC grant money from one line item to another, which is gonna allow for the compensation of this to happen.
And then I think he said at the beginning, if we ever needed to, obviously the last ditch is you go back to, you just have administrative staff in an office that's farming out cases. But we're trying different models to see what works. Just given the competitive nature of attorneys and lack thereof, and the ability to run an office as complex as a PD's office, this is the next step in trying to find viability for the county.
Well, I'm happy that we went to a public defender's office. So,
Yeah, it's best for the court, frankly. It's best for the court, it's best for the citizens. And
yeah.
I don't want to speak for the prosecutor's office, but I would assume that it's best for them as well, because there's point of contacts for cases, right? And if the court needs something done in 15 minutes, it can be done in 15 minutes. Listen, I know this is gonna work. I have zero doubts that if this is something that this committee is gonna recommend to the Board of Commission, that this is gonna work. I have zero doubts. We have the exact right people in the exact right places to make this work, and I have no doubt at all. I'm an Eaton County resident, so, you know, that's important to me. We put a lot of work in the last 7 months To step away and put a system in place that I know is not going to work would be a disservice, not only to you all, to Controller Dawson, but also to the citizens. So that's not anything I'm interested in.
Okay, Commissioner Haskell.
Just a procedural question. Does this need to go to the full board for approval or just through here?
It will need to go to the full board.
Okay, I make the motion to send this to the full board.
Okay, moved and supported. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those that are in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Matt, is this considered intellectual property now, and we own this idea and we can get revenue from it?
Listen,
when the
I'm a
state
criminal
adopts it?
lawyer. I know crimes. I don't know anything about anything else, but I say you run with it. Let's just own that thing and make someone tell us no.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, you heard the man,
I got one question.
certainly.
Hey, Matt, thank you for what you've done, and it's pretty short of amazing. We all appreciate it, but I do have a question. This model seems to me that it's only as good as the people or the person that is running it, leading it. God forbid anything happens to you. But is it in place that the gentlemen that you're working with for this advisory are going to continue?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
The three of us are, we had some really good discussions about continuing and being able to do this. And the way that we've drafted the contract is if for whatever reason one person needs to step away for whatever purpose, the other two are still in that same role. I mean, that, to answer your question, yes.
Okay, super.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, moving forward to item 11, construction codes. Good morning, Chris.
Right, so we'll share this. My office worked with Chris's office to put together the projections before you. So we had a abridged fee schedule proposal that was tabled until we could see the entire fee schedule. So before you is a full updated recommended fee schedule, as well as a revenue expense and fund balance chart before you. Lot going on. We did work with our contractor to try to flush out how to think of this in context. So you have your target range, which we set at, let me pull it up, I want to say, the low end of 60% and the high end of 115%, I believe, of prior year expenses. And that's a range where each year we'll be monitoring this as part of the budget process. So if the numbers are dipping into that range, we'll monitor it, and then we will have an independent party evaluate our fee schedule at a time if we end up in that range. It's just kind of giving you an indicator of what to be looking for. You have the fund balance projections in green, which are with reductions. So you can see if the reductions in the packet are adopted and expenses follow the modeling forecast that we had in place, that at the end of the projection period of 2030, the fund balance will be right at that top line of that target range. So I think that would be in line with the intent of the policy of trying to keep your expenses within, or your fund balance in a range of your expenses. The expenses is the dark red line. Then you have two revenue lines showing. So currently, if we kept the same schedule we have and didn't do a reduction, it would be that dotted blue line. If we take the fee schedule that's before us, it's the dark green line. Both of those revenue projections have taken Charlotte out completely. If there's any additional communities that come on, or if a community comes on for just trades, that's not built into this in the same way we got Grand Ledge recently, right? So right now, this is just assuming we keep the same footprint of communities in the projection. And then if we kept the current schedule, made no changes, that orange line would be the fund balance projection over the period.
Any questions? All right, seeing none. Okay, we need to move this to the full board also, correct?
Yes.
Okay, should we discuss?
Support.
Okay, moved and supported, thank you. Should we discuss the implementation date at this point?
So we were talking about maybe 10-1, just make it as part of the fiscal year. That way we're outside the construction season and there's no ambiguity about what to do since it took us this long to get to this point. But that's a good discussion for you all to have.
Any comments on that?
No, we just don't have to do any retroactive situations where we discussed before, so I'm good with 10-1.
Okay.
That is as an item to discuss, at least I want you to know I did run the figures so that you can assess what a refund would look like and spoke to our legal counsel, but that's the next item.
Anybody else? Any input on that?
It makes sense to me, Mr. Chair, that we would, put them into effect as soon as possible, maybe 9/1. We're recognizing that, fee schedule is out of alignment where it needs to be, and I think to wait, additional month. I don't know if there's really any profitability with the fee changes lining up with our fiscal year, other than potentially internally. But, I would include in my I would amend my motion, I guess, to include them going into effect on 9/1, if that's, achievable by the staff and administration.
I would have to defer, so when we do these kind of like the discussion we had at the last time it was brought up, and reason we wanted to run with those is there's a lead time for making the changes in BSNA. Chris, what's your anticipated, like how long it would take to update the fee schedule?
Usually, sorry, I'm looking at my calendar to see when 9/1 falls. It usually takes about a week. We have to go into each one of these categories and adjust them. You know, and we can do it and set it up before we make it live and verify that we didn't make a mistake. But, I don't want to rush my staff to do that. I want to make sure they take their time so that we don't have an error. I could probably do it by 9/1. My objective of 10/1 was just, that's the fiscal year, so looking at, when we're going back and looking at, how much money we're bringing in and how much my cost is, we could just do it off of the fiscal year. That was my only reason for October 1.
Yeah.
I just felt it would be easier for a start of a fiscal year. The fees changed.
So it is implementable then?
Yeah, we can make it, yep.
I would offer that amendment to my motion.
We have a second to that amendment. Okay, then we're back to October 1st. Commissioner Moudry.
I realize that Chris could get this done in a week, okay? Is there any stipulations of notification to the public when these fees change? I would go with October 1st. Give more time for the general public to know that there's a change here.
We have the capability through BSNA to send out a mass email to all of our contractors. So that would go out notifying them that, hey, we've done a reduction in fees. And then I would have it posted on our website also for the public, on our webpage, that we have reduced our fees as of 10/1.
Commissioner Shaver.
In addition to that point, I think it would be a little bit different for my thought process if we were raising the fees, because then you would have unexpected demand on funds that might not have been contracted for or whatever, but this is actually across the board a decrease. So I think you're just gonna make people happy whenever you do it. I still feel like the sooner the better, but you're just gonna make people happy.
I understand that. Anyone else? Chris, on average, just off the top of your head, what do you think the savings would amount to?
For a permit?
Yeah.
For a trade permit, you're probably looking at around $75 to $100 in savings for electrical, plumbing, or mechanical permit. The other permits were more the specialized things, the re-roofs, the deck remodels. in single-wide and double-wide homes. As far as the new construction of a new home, my staff and I went through all that, and it was, we just couldn't get the numbers to work to set a base fee for that, because there's just too many variables with a new home. You know, do you have a basement? Are you doing a slab on grade? Is it a pole barn dominium? So we left the new home part the way it was. I can tell you that it shows on my schedule that I'm at $6 a foot, which is the same as the state of Michigan. So like for a 2,000 square foot home, the building permit would be $1,164. There are some jurisdictions in Eaton County that use the ICC chart, which is at $11 a square foot. So for the same square footage at home, the 2,000 square feet, their permit would be $3,762 for the building permit.
So with that information, I would say it's probably not very likely that many construction projects would be put on hold
No.
anticipating the reduction.
No.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor for the original October 1st implementation.
My original motion did not have an implementation date into it, to be clear.
Okay, all right, let's consider that separately then. So Mr. Shaver's motion is to accept this plan as written, and then we will consider the implementation date. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, now, implementation date. It was suggested that we wait till, or we go ahead with September 1st. That was not supported. So the motion, do we have a motion on the floor for October 1st then?
I'll make that motion.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition?
No.
All right. Next item, Chris.
So there was a discussion on refunds. We worked with Chris's office. So from 8/12 through June 1st, there were 739 permits issued. We went through and tried to estimate staff time for reviewing in his office and then our office to do payments and then mailers and supply cost. Bulk of that for the hourly employees would be on overtime because we don't have staff capacity to duplicate that in addition to the normal workload. So the value of refunds over that period would be $25,600. The estimated cost would be a little over $19,000. So it was essentially for every dollar of refund issued, it'd be 75 cents that we'd have to spend in executing the process. Even if we were able to trim that through efficiency and say reduce it by 20%, you're still looking at 60 cents on the dollar for the refunds going out. We did speak with legal counsel. They advised and recommended not to do it because of the ambiguity of who paid for the permits. So if your intention, say you have a contractor in the middle of a legal dispute with the homeowner and you refund the money to the contractor, you could get pulled into their process. And based on our fund balance where we were at, we are no way in danger of being outside the realms of what's statutorily allowable. They talked about how they've had to defend communities that have a significantly higher fund balance. As we want to keep it as close to expenses, he's like, that's a Eaton County pride point. He's like, but from a legal standpoint, I just have to tell you, you guys are really, really, really tight compared to some other communities that they successfully defend. So that was the feedback when we ran it through the process.
All right, any questions on that? So we need not take any action on that. All right, anything else, Chris?
That's it for me today.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, on to item number 12, Equalization Property Description Director. Is Tim in the house?
I don't think he has a formal update, but we always leave the spot just in case, but he is here.
All right, thank you, Tim. Okay, on to item 13, Technology Services Director, Logan. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry, Logan. Good morning, Nathan. Almost demoted you, Nathan.
Hi, I'm Nathan Nybert, the Chief Information Security Officer. Eric's busy at the moment, so yesterday we conducted an exercise with the Tri-County Active Violence Team at Eaton Rapids High School. Many agencies took advantage of the opportunity. The training is open to all law, fire, EMS, and dispatch folks in Eaton, Ingham, and Clinton counties. Technology services staff has quite a few roles. Just wanted to kind of let you guys know about this. The county GIS staff does custom paper maps, digital maps, aerial photography, and then we run the Family Information Center. And then county technical staff, we took care of the mock press conference, the CRG maps to the field units, photography, and general technical support. We also did some support for the new sheriff command vehicle as well yesterday. The training was a success. I did want to say thank you to Commissioner Mott for being there, appreciate it, and then Commissioner Hanson as well. Thank you for being there, as well as the whole Eaton Rapids City Council. They were also in attendance to see the exercise. Any questions on that one?
Any questions for Nathan?
Cool.
I had a brief discussion with Commissioner Mott, and I apologize that I was not able to attend, but apparently they're taking a different look at crowd gatherings now and the way they implement safety protocols. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we've never did a training in an open air environment. It's always been focused on a building inside specifically. So this was something new and fresh for everybody. If you search WILX, news was there as well. They covered it pretty well.
Okay. Would Sheriff Reich like to make a comment to this also? Is that a no? I can't see him.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, thank you. Just notice the bad guys, then we're prepared, right?
That's the goal.
All right.
So, also, I wanted to let you guys know the acts on justice that we passed. We had the initial meetings, and then there's another set of meetings next week for both the prosecutor's office and the public defender's office. That project is moving along pretty well so far. And then the fiddler in the county clerk's office, new system is in place. We'll be winding down the old system by 9/1. I believe their website has changed as well to be able to reference the new system as well. Any questions on that one?
I don't see any.
That's all I had.
All right, thank you, Nathan.
Thanks.
All right. On to item 14, Facilities Management Director. There's Chad. Good morning, Chad.
Morning. Be pretty quick this month. Just a couple of updates. The elevator replacement project is in design. They're drafting specs. They're actually here today doing another site visit, getting all that stuff ironed out. It will design a final design review later this month, and then it'll go out for bid early fall. Material procurement for elevators is quite lengthy, so it would be, you know, late winter, early spring before we'd be ready to get started. And obviously a more detailed schedule will come out as we get closer. It'll take a lot of coordination with the building occupants, especially here at the courthouse when we start talking about the public elevator, inmate elevator. We had our courthouse security meeting yesterday, a lengthy discussion about how we are looking at facilitating that when we get to that point. So more to come with that. And then just a quick update on the Crandall Park Flanders Road Access project that's in the final design. Still on target for fall, winter bid process, and then construction start early spring of '27. And that's all I have this month. We're doing our internal projects. Here we are in the August, halfway through. We got, you know, a lot to get done for October, so we just plugging away at that stuff.
All right, any questions for Chad? Commissioner Holmes.
Yes, thank you. Chad, I was wondering, you know, briefly, can you tell us what part of an elevator wears out or gets too old to work?
So the problem that we're up against with our elevators is they're all, I think the youngest one, or the one that was installed most recently, is a 1993 model. Just like vehicles, you know, things become obsolete. It costs more to maintain them, and you just can't get the parts anymore. So the courthouse here is a 1976, their original. So the parts that wear out are the hydraulic. All of our elevators are hydraulic shafts, so that becomes an issue. Leaks, just the wear and tear of 50+ years. And also, I should mention that I believe it's 2028, the state is changing, making some changes to the elevator code, which will require significant upgrades. And at that point, the cost to retrofit these upgrades that are coming, it's cost prohibitive. It makes more sense to do a complete modernization.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Shaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It might just be an oversight, but I see here, we still have that $5,472 left in the balance on that overhead door extension, and we had moved that back to the general fund.
Nope, you are correct. Actually, the budget amendments, you'll see it's in there. We just forgot to put it with the budget amendments, but.
Sure.
Yep. That'll get transferred after this month's budget amendments. Yep.
Any other questions for Chad?
I would just say from a staffing standpoint, Chad's office is one of the last offices that we're looking at structurally, changes there because of the amount of procurement that runs through. And then in addition, we've talked a while about getting him a lead, like a project manager, which we hope to do through budgetary savings because he currently contracts sometimes on those projects. If we can bring him in-house, we can bring down the cost. So that's part of how we're looking to do that. On the short term, he has an upcoming retirement. It's going to be a significant hit to the department. Just, I'd like to say Tony is the whisperer of all equipment at Eaton County. And so he will be sorely missed. And as part of that, we've been talking with Chad. He has some budgetary savings because he's had an employee that's been out on an injury most of the year. So his team's already been down capacity about trying to do a short-term mechanic or a short-term posting that could transition to full-time after the retirement in the new year. Try to get as much overlap as possible so we can, have that overlap. So anything to add on that portion, Chad?
I think you covered it pretty good. If there's any questions, I mean, we've been shorthanded, getting by, short-staffed, but obviously, you know, the remaining staff gets a little burned out. They have vacations and time off, and then that puts us even, you know, shorter. I think two guys are off today, so that puts us down to two maintenance crew here for the whole complex. So we balance, prioritize, and get by, but a short-term solution to solve that, fill that gap would be much appreciated. And then also in terms of a project manager, this is one of the only organizations I've ever been a part of across the region that doesn't have some type of project management capacity in-house. So that would certainly help expedite a lot of the projects that just take up a lot of my time that could be deferred and worked, coordinated through another project manager position.
And I'll mention it while he's here because I don't know if he can stay to the end of the meeting. But under the budget amendments is a $15,000 for parks to do something with the observatory. I'll just mention that Chad has a very full schedule, probably going out easily 5 months in advance. In Public Works, it came up very quickly because of a public comment and a letter that's going to be in the board packet next month. Just for consideration, while a project could feasibly be done within 30 days, that would assume that Chad has to drop other things in order to pick something like that up. So when we do get to that point, I'd just like to have that piece that we can't always dump things to make room for something that pops up at the last minute. And I'm going to speak for Chad. I don't want to burn him out because we are very lucky that we have somebody with his skill set, and he's done a great job bringing down our capital costs and also planning our capital costs. So in full acknowledgement before we get to that section, if you want to weigh in, I just want to make sure that discussion's had so we all have realistic expectations with how that project will play out, if it's moved, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can, and I mean, I gotta say, it's a little frustrating when we were, you know, earlier this month, just a couple weeks ago, we had our Parks Work Group, and there were 4 commissioners that were adamantly against moving forward with this. And then the day of Public Works, actually Ben texted me, he's like, hey, can you speak about this? Because we were not planning on that. That was the direction that we took from that group. And then I get things change and opinions change, but now we're looking at, you know, revisiting it, and it's just, that's the type of stuff that gets a little frustrating because we plan, I could have had this in the works already and brought you some solid numbers and ready to go, but it got stopped and we stopped and now we're gonna start again, and that's the type of stuff that slows things down. So I just wanted to touch on that. And I can answer any questions when we get to that budget amendment.
You'll be here for that then?
Yeah.
Okay. Last question for you, Chad.
Yeah, sorry.
Back to the elevators, if you don't mind. So when we upgrade these elevators, then they'll be up to and beyond that 2028 standard that you were speaking of?
Yes, absolutely, yep.
Okay, very good.
In fact, we have we met yesterday with Eric and it was yesterday or day before, I can't remember, to make sure network requirements, anything from Eric's side, communication, that's a big thing now with the new elevators. They all have to have, you know, communication directly to 911. Some of ours do, some of ours don't. So that type of thing, making sure everything's in line with the upcoming code changes. Fire alarm, we're meeting later today through a Teams meeting to make sure our current system has capacity to make those upgrades. So yeah, everything will be up to the most modern and current elevator code.
Thank you. All righty. Moving on to item 15 then. Public and Governmental Affairs Director. Logan, I think that's you this time.
This is me, yes. I'll keep this brief. In your packet, you'll see the same analytics that I provide every month. But before I go over any of that, juvenile and 911 millage education campaigns are done. And I know we've done this a few times at some of these meetings, but I do want to thank and give a shout out to Central Dispatch and the juvenile team and the courts team, Judge Pollard, Kelly, all of your staff, Judge Cunningham, Amy Etzel, Mel, everybody that went out. Some of those conversations and late nights were not easy, but you took it in stride, and I really appreciate that. Specifically, I'm going to shout out Judge Pollard for the phone calls and random texts she'd get from me saying, hey, there's a camera in the building, and they want to see your face. She did not blanch at that to tell her story. And on that note, the biggest takeaway from me is that we shouldn't be waiting for an election to tell a lot of these stories. And so specifically with the juvenile program, 911 has a great mechanism to talk about the work that they do. But with juvenile and the youth facility, it's a little more nuanced, a little trickier, and they don't necessarily have that arm to do that, and historically have never done that. And so we're going to retain and repurpose a lot of those education materials to continue to tell that story, and Judge Pollard is taking a big lead on that. So just a big shout out there. Moving on to some of the analytics you see, just very quickly, I'm continuing to train and work with departments and some of the newer staff that are coming in to keep that content current and accessible and easily accessible to residents. We are continuing to track accessibility issues with the Core Web Vitals that you see. Specifically, in the last 2 months, I talked to you about the LCP, which is that largest contentful paint, which is essentially just how fast content loads for folks. We're starting to see it dip again, as you can see in some of these analytics. Our target is a 2.5 seconds or less, and it's not happening on some of these pages, and it seems as the information gets more complex or those forms get more complex, it's starting to fall. And so we're working on figuring out why that's happening and what incremental changes we can make depending on the office and department and what information they have on there. Some of that has to do with these modules updating as we modernize the site, and there's old information there that has historically been there for years, and it's just slowing everything down. So we'll continue to track that. And although, 1 month's data isn't necessarily a trend, we want to see significant movement on that LCP very quickly. As well, one thing on the site, we're starting to consider cost savings and what that looks like to reimagine how we handle the hiring process online. We currently use an external system, and we're going to try and streamline that. And so I'm starting to build out what that could look like of us owning and managing that system within our current site. Maybe it won't be as user-friendly or flashy, but I think we can find some cost savings there through slight modification. So you'll see more of that in the next couple months. And then lastly, one thing, the notice of funding opportunity that came for that security funding that went through, everything has been submitted. Thank you to Chad, Eric, and the Sheriff's Office for helping to manage what that's going to look like budgetarily around that grant coming in. We did have to slightly modify some of the scope in terms of the cybersecurity versus the security tenant a lot of these windows. So I'll give an update once that's approved, hopefully by the next Ways and Means meeting on what the new scope of that project looks like. And that's all I got, if there's any questions.
Any questions for Logan? All right, seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
On to item 16, Human Resources Administrator. Positions update. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning. All right, so this month we have 12 open positions. Of those, 6 are reoccurring. I have 2 recommendations for reauthorization today. I'm asking for your approval for a public safety telecommunicator and an assistant public defender.
I'll move them.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Any discussion or questions? These are vacated because,
We had a dispatcher that left, and then we also had another, the public defender that has no longer employed either.
all right, so they've not been open for a while then.
That's correct, just this month.
All right, any other questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right,
We also have filled 10 positions over this past month, both in the general employees and in the elected official offices. They're all listed on your document there. And I also wanted to mention, while it's not on the position sheet, that I just wanted to provide the board with an update that our seasonal staff have completed their assignments for the season at Parks and Recs. And I think it's important that we all know that they were a tremendous help at the parks and our summer camp program. And at least we appreciate all the hard work and contributions through the season. So just thought I'd mention that. I think they're very helpful.
Commissioner Wright.
So all of our seasonal is gone as of today?
No, all of them left, was it Ethan, the 10th?
It's just our summer camp.
Yeah, the summer camp.
Oh, summer
Yeah, and a
camp.
few of the
Otherwise,
other
regular
seasonal
maintenance
parks
ones and stuff.
will be leaving. I think 1 or 2 are going back to school, and we're going to keep one on for another month or 2. So
Okay.
still under the part-time status.
I think they've done a good job this season.
They have, so I just wanted to recognize that.
Thank you.
They help keep the parks running.
Any other questions?
Just make 2 statements. I want to give a shout out to Jeremy Mulvaney. The staffing at the youth facility is the best it's been, knock on
Yes.
everything. But really, that just shows the amount of dedicated work on not just recruiting people, but retaining people and cultivating an environment folks want to work at. And for the facility itself, hopefully that wing, that's the objective, is opening the additional space so those beds are available for use. So shout out to him. He's doing a great job. Keep it up. Our vacancy rating for the over 6-month average is 7.62%. So that's really good. This month, we're at 7.56. So we've done a good job closing that gap, as opposed to the 12-month was 9.6%. And back when I started, we were around 16% was the vacancy average, so.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right, Susan, what's up next?
I think Ben's up next.
Yay.
You don't want to contribute?
If you want to scroll down. So this is a forecast that we put together, projection. Thanks, Susan. As requested, I did put the big bold and red internal use only in the sense that there are so many variables that go into this. I list a few at the bottom. So I'll start off by just painting that picture. Retirees' life expectancies versus what's actuarially assumed. That throws projections off. Current employee actual retirement date versus what's assumed. So if they assume somebody's going to retire at 25 years and they stick around 2 years, that's good news. It just changes the modeling. Or if they go early, market performance and the process of how those assets are smoothed versus what's the projected rate of return. So for instance, if we have a really good earning this year, and we might be above that 6.7% that was in the evaluation, so next year's eval from MERS might be different just because that one earning year throws it off in your favor, or if it's a bad year, then it sticks on the smoothing process for 5 years. Yeah, again, knock on wood panels. Yep. And then general global volatility and the impact on market performance. It just, for what it's worth, you know, you've got volatility in the grain marketplace and nitrogen and with fuel. And it's not just one conflict, like we've got an ongoing conflict in Ukraine that's disrupted food for going on multiple years, and then on top of that. So anyway, those pieces all play in. So, but what you see is we're right now at 64%. At a baseline, assuming that we continue to put $1 million aside, which is in the forecasted budget. And then I assumed if we have delinquent tax payments, you would also be putting those away, similar to what we did with the $500,000 earlier this budget cycle. No additional contributions each March or June after we get our audit back if there's savings from uncompleted projects, unfilled positions. This is just that baseline forecast. And then assuming the growth rate, we would be at 74% or 71% at the end of this projection period. I took a conservative approach with it. I did not get into like a full actuarial piece. I don't have the time or the system to do it, but I think this is a good conservative snapshot of what a baseline, any additional we do above that and any earnings above the 6% will show up in this year over year. And I'm happy to continue this projection as we play this out.
Okay, any questions? Commissioner Haskell?
So I believe this is probably the graph that was mentioned earlier in public comment. So I just want to kind of like maybe give you a chance, Ben, to kind of draw some more eyes to this and explain it a little bit further. The idea was that by looking at this and you see the value of assets and the accrued liability never really catching up, that we're not closing that gap. But that's not true, correct? I mean, like, we can see that our funded ratio is projected to increase, and that's really the gap that needs to be closed, right?
Correct. And what I don't have, so your liability grows. For instance, we have a subset of retirees that get cost of living adjustments. Those are no longer a makeup of our pensions, and they haven't been for a long time. But as folks that have that as a benefit pass away, which is the natural process of a plan like this, you will see, I think, a slowing in the growth of those accruals. I assume no slowing, and I just continued its growth at what's been the historic 3-year average. But that's just the reality of a plan like this. So in spite of not accounting for demographic shifts like that, we're still moving our funded level up. So even though the liabilities are growing, so are the assets being set aside, which is why that funding ratio is closing.
Right. So I think, you know, when you look at this and then you look at the graph from our MERS forecast that shows us being 100% funded by, what was it, 2040, 2045 or something like that.
Yeah, I think with the 5-year extension.
Yeah, I could understand why, you know, someone in the public would look at this and go, well, it doesn't look like you ever actually catch up. But, and then one graph you look at it like, oh, but you do. So I appreciate the extra context. Thank you.
And that chart in their report has an implied assumption that we will do nothing beyond the minimum, and their required contributions are what get us to 100. So as we've taken the proactive steps, every year you'll see that start to play out, that you should see their required contributions coming down because we're proactively addressing it rather than them forcibly doing it through the minimum contribution over that period.
Okay, Commissioner Wright.
Okay, Ben, Was it 2017 when we took away and we reduced the multiplier? Is that when we took away the cost of living?
I'd have to go back and see where it is for each plan, but 2017 was a significant makeup year for our plans. We may have closed those COLAs earlier, and the way these work is for our union groups, each union has its own division. So for instance, 2017 was the 312 arbitration with our groups, and that's where significant reduction of that plan occurred. We went from a 3.2 to a 2.0. Added a cap for overtime for final average compensation. So that was a big year in terms of rectifying structurally what was not a viable, long-term sustainable plan, but just county hadn't taken the action to put a pension in place that was sustainable.
Okay, so that generates two things in my head. One of them is, do we have a ceiling on the cost of living, like the public schools, when they redid it in 2012, they made it so that anybody who was on a public school pension could be only, or had to be capped at a 3%? It could be lower cost of living, but 3% cost of living.
Yeah, great question. I believe the ones we have were capped at 2.5%.
2.5, okay.
Which is still, I mean, this is the difficulty, and this is what I've said throughout union negotiations with folks, is we need to get past having discussions around pension, and we have a sustainable one. I want to help you get what you need to invest in the marketplace outside of, but we contribute to Social Security. You have a 2.0. This is a sustainable plan now. Let's talk about health insurance and salaries. Like, that's where our discussions need to be. Because when you lock in a benefit like 2.5%, there were years employees were getting 0 and 1% increases that our retirees were getting 2.5%. And I know our retirees would say it wasn't enough, but also our employees would say it wasn't enough. So that's the difficulty. So that's why we're really making our focus today's compensation. Keep the plan we have. It is sustainable. If it had been in place since 1992, we wouldn't be here. But we're taking the steps to climb out of where we're at.
So do we have a number count on how many people are in that cost of living situation?
I can work on getting it.
I mean, I'm
don't
just,
currently.
just for a general idea.
I would pace the retirees health group, so the folks that have that closed benefit.
Oh, yeah, that
They're probably pretty close. We have 39 active employees in that group, and that's actually the next thing is the retirees health. So as of November 1st, we will have 39 current employees working under that benefit group. And I think the population of the retirees group is in the report. So I'll scroll to that page when we're there.
I know we changed that to the HSA back in 2005 or 6 or something.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
7? Okay.
We had to
That was here,
negotiate, so some groups are earlier, and then final was 2007.
I don't know, I'm just trying to wrap my head around going forward. A couple of other agencies that have mirrors, we're digging into some details as well. So I'm trying to learn. Thanks.
No, absolutely.
Do you want to add anything to that? No, okay, I thought you were. All right. Commissioner Shaver, then Commissioner Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ben, thank you for providing this for us. I think it's probably was my questions the most that might have led us to this. I appreciate it. I'm a little bit concerned. I understand all the I think I understood everything that you said, but I'm concerned because the projected funded ratio, although it continues to go up, it's not near matching the rate that our liabilities could go up. And I understood what you were saying about, people falling off the pension system at some point. Can we talk about the blue line for a minute? Because that was really the discussion a month ago and 2 months ago. I think we said we were roughly 16 to 17 million off the blue line right now. So I'm looking more at the blue line than I am the top number, just in all fairness, because I think it's that blue line that gets us to the point where we can begin to restore some of the services.
it looks like we're getting quite a bit further away from the blue line year by year as we move along over these next 5 years. That's why I've been so adamant about finding more money to put against that MERS obligation. Can you give us some interpretation with that?
Definitely. So, and it might actually be a better exercise. I could take the yellow line off. What I'm doing is overlaying 2 data sets so I can tell a picture with one graphic. But really, that yellow line right there is the relationship between the accrued liabilities, the orange, and the actuarial value of our assets. The only relationship is I'm just showing 2 stories on one piece. I could probably separate these out. So that line is the gap between. So from 2025 to 2031, the gap between that top and our assets, we close it by 6%, 7% over that 5-year period. The reason it looks what you're talking about is because the yellow line is anchored to the percentage on the right, and then the actual assets are anchored to the dollar amounts over on the left. So we actually do close that gap. So I could take them off. I just thought it's good to look at both of them at the same time, but we could make these separate charts because.
So that's okay.
Yeah.
You're educating me. So what I should be looking at is the relationship between the dotted orange and the dotted blue and the dashed orange line at the top. You're saying that's what's decreased by 4 million, 5 million, whatever you said. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll pull up the Excel sheet real quick. Give me 1 second. Yeah, it's like close to 5 million. So our liabilities and the assets grow, but the assets, there's 5 million more at the end of that projection period.
And we needed about 16 or 17 million in this next fiscal year in order to reach that tipping point. Is that correct?
So the tipping point is based on the earnings, right?
Understood.
Yeah, but if we had had the same earnings as we did in the prior year, if we had had 16 million more in assets, we would have earned enough that all the benefits would have been paid by what we were holding. So then anything the county contributed would have just gone right to the principle of building up our base of assets.
Understood. So we're, I'm educated, but I'm not an actuarial science major or anything like that. So for the, just base numbers, even though there really aren't any base numbers when you're calculating something like this, we're on the track that we're on. Is it fair to say we're 14 or 15 years away from hitting that blue line then?
That's tough. I can try to see if I can squeeze. I just did the 5 years.
Understand.
But yeah, if you want, I could try to do this over a longer period, similar to how MERS does it. They just say 6.7 and then they run it out. But
I think all of us, and as well as the people that we represent, are looking for not magic, but like real numbers for, okay, what does this look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I'm proud that we're making traction on it. I just see that the traction is much more long-term than what people are hoping for with the amounts that we're willing to pay towards that long-term liability at this point.
I mean, I understand. I was part of the financial stability work groups that Chairman Mott mustered in shortly after Connie became the controller administrator to explore these things, and there was not an appetite at that time from a lot of members to do anything about MERS, but hypothetically, had we started this work 10 years ago, we'd be in a much better spot now, you know, and I think that's part of the reason I put that yellow line in there, is just to acknowledge that this information has been an ongoing discussion, and so this board has finally taken up the mantle. And I think employees are also excited to see that even though there were reductions, it's getting invested in the right places, and it's going towards the long-term sustainability. So yeah, give me some time, and maybe I can try to parallel this out like as far that MERS does, so then you could try to contrast their graph with our graph. It's going to be a simple model, though. So I say that the actuaries have sophisticated software, life expectancies for everybody in the group, but I'll just try to parody some of the assumptions they're making and piggyback on that and add our value. Yep.
Commissioner Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's going to be abbreviated. There could be multiple facts that are all correct at the same time, and they're all there, right? So last year, this county put more money to MERS than they ever had in their existence, right? And last year, we had more claims against MERS than we ever had in existence also. So it can be a fact that if we don't put more money towards MERS, those two lines are not going to diverge. They're going to separate. So that is a fact. So.
Anyone else? Commissioner Wright.
I'll just say that a couple years ago, we ran 2 millages for operating 2 different ways, and they were both to give us additional, just plain operating funds, and they were both voted down. So, and we put the police millage out, that got voted down. So, we've cut staff, we've done everything that, I mean, and we have a model that appears to get us there. Maybe we're on the going rate of the tortoise versus the rabbit, but at least got a plan now. That's what I keep trying to say. We got a plan, we got a process, you know.
And our projected end date is now 2044 or something like that.
Yeah, I think 2044, 2045.
We have to project beyond that point.
That's what Mayor showed.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'll try to do is chart it out so you can see. So you see what MERS required contributions and stuff look over the period, and then you can just see how quickly a commitment of 1.5 million plus the revenue from the Delta contract and the Windsor contract, because everybody committed to, and part of those police services contracts, a third of the admin revenue going towards annually paying this stuff down. Yeah, but this includes the one-time adjustments of the 1.79 plus the 1.5, so I'll work on it.
All right, any other questions?
No, but I'll just like to say that I appreciate I got a controller that's half actuarial.
Actuarial light.
Well, I think half actuarial sounded nice. All righty, moving on from item B to item C, our retired health trust.
So this is the other discussion group that it's good for us to keep a pulse on. I included a snapshot. So we had mentioned before in the past, we used to be self-funded. And so what that means, let me get to there on my computer. All right. So our funding ratio for this is 76.5%, so it's much better funded than the MERS, but there's a story to that. So when you go back and look at 2022, you can see we were 32% funded at that time. At that time, we actually procured the health insurance for retirees with our active employees, so meaning we were buying the same plans on the private marketplace. In 2023, we did a transition where we bought Medicare Advantage plans, which are preset marketplace plans that directly work with Medicare to kind of streamline the experience for retirees. And they were under cost because they were heavily subsidized by the federal government. We locked in a 3-year contract on that, and that's why you see our assets to liabilities dramatically shifted, because we had a locked-in contract and we were now participating in a plan that was subsidized. There are 2 notes I want to make. Is we're going to renew our agreement. They're no longer offering multi-year contracts, and I'm reading about and Wall Street Journal and New York Times keeping a pulse on it, but there are discussions happening about reducing the amount of federal money that goes into Medicare Advantage Part D for prescription drugs. So what that will have as a consequence on the Medicare marketplace, you'll probably see over the next 4 years, costs shift back to employers or individuals that procure Medicare Advantage plans on the marketplace themselves. That being said, I think it's still the model we should be moving forward with, but when I look at that funded ratio, I'm reading it as probably closer to 40% funded, because if the Medicare Advantage marketplace gets too expensive, we may want to explore bringing retirees back to the same pool of health insurance that we have for current employees. At this time, I'm very comfortable with staying the course of the Medicare Advantage plans, but we're going to keep an eye on it. You have 39 current employees that pay into this plan, which means that we have payroll deductions every 2 weeks that are putting money into the plan. I recommend we continue to do that, where we pay the expenses out of our payroll deductions while also keeping all the investment proceeds in the plan. And then when the last person retires out, we can talk about are we at a place where we can switch over to having the investment income start to pay for the plan, or will there need to be general fund contribution in excess of that? So we're not there yet, but that's just a pulse. This is something we just have to accept the report. There's no real action. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions? All right, so all we need to do is vote to accept.
Yes, sir.
Okay, moved and supported. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, thank you. And I see Susan's still here. Susan, anything to add? Okay, thank you. All right, on to item 17, and that's Finance Director. And I think before we get into that, because we've already had a couple people migrate out, let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back for Melissa's report. And we'll be All right, welcome back. We will pick up where we left off at item 17 with our finance director's report. Melissa?
Good morning. All right, so I have quite the slew of items for you all today. I apologize. Before you, there are the financial reports for the month of July, as well as June's Child Care Fund report and the health insurance report through June 30. These reports are included in the packet. I do not have anything major to note regarding these reports. So if there are any questions about them, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to our RFP. We did do an RFP, closed the RFP last month. We were hoping for a few more responses and did not receive anything further, so I apologize that this did not get submitted last month. So we did receive 4 responses. One of them was from Syracuse, New York, which was an interesting read. But we do have, of these, I have a recommendation to go with Gaybridge and Company. They are incredibly qualified. They have probably the best similar engagements, and their request, they actually had asked additional questions, trying to figure out how can they, as a competitor, meet staff needs. So they did inquire about a lot of things, so that was part of the reason why we liked those, that company. That would be my recommendation. The one from Syracuse, New York would not be. But there are 2 others as well that were very qualified. I just feel that Gaybridge would be more qualified. So this does need to go to the full board for approval, as it is a large contract. So we would need this to move to the full board.
Any questions from Melissa? Commissioner Shaver?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you just maybe give us the contrast between Gaybridge and the Andrews Hooper Pavlik? It just looks like that one's a little bit more cost effective, but there's a lot more things at play than.
So Andrews Hooper and Pavlik looked like a great one on the surface, and it probably would be eminently qualified. However, their closest similar engagements were very small municipalities, and then also one very large municipality, which is the state of Michigan, for the unemployment agency. And that one, they said their engagement takes up more than half of their year. So I would have a hard time believing that we would be a priority. And this same principle is handling all of those large cases. Whereas Gaybridge has very, very similar engagements, and it's multiple principals that are signing off on those same.
Any other questions?
You need a motion then?
We will. Oh, Commissioner Haskell.
That's what I was looking to make.
I'll move Gaybridge to the full board.
I'll support.
Okay, now, any discussion, questions, comments? All right, we don't have to work with them directly, Melissa does, so if this is her recommendation, so if you come back next year and tell us, oops.
Well, we'll have a 3-year contract, so I will absolutely support them for the next 3 years.
All right, I don't see any further questions, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right.
All right, then thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa.
So our next item for me is our budget amendments that are needed for the month of August. There are quite a few. First and foremost is the one that I missed last month, so I apologize, Commissioner Shaver. That was actually my fault that Chad's report
No problem. I
weren't
just noticed it.
updated. So that was oversight on my part from last month, so this is just codifying the change that was requested. The next is the item for the Fox Park Observatory for the $20,000 That is just a rough estimate as to how much that may cost. Chad obviously will be overseeing the project from his team to make sure that costs are appropriate. The next amendment is actually the second part of the first amendment. And then there is an amendment for the radio surcharge. We've spoken a couple of times about some additional costs that Central Dispatch has experienced for radio surcharge expenses. We had some items that were damaged during storms, as well as just general turnover of equipment that needed to happen that was not budgeted for. And last but not least, we did have a brand-new fund that needed to be created and budgeted for. This is a budget for the new Veterans Services Donation Fund. We were able to do this very large event for veterans, and that created a donation revenue, as well as we did have to pay a vendor for services rendered for catering. So we ended up bringing in funds in excess that will then go for veterans.
Commissioner Shaver.
Can we please pull out, if you want to vote on these together, can you please pull out the Parks and Recreation Fox Observatory, so we can vote on that separately, please?
If that's your wish.
That is my wish.
Do that. Why don't we discuss that right now then? He wants to address the Parks and Recreation Fund separate from the rest. So I think it's just a consensus. All right, so Mr. Shaver, you'd like to address that?
We're going to vote on that right now, then?
Well, if you want to address just the Parks and Recreation Fund prior to, if you want to move that separate from the rest of this, or would you like to discuss it separately and then include it in the overall motion?
No, I would just like to vote on it separately.
Okay. All right.
I don't have a lot to discuss. I mean, I can share my thoughts, but
The floor is yours.
I don't think that that necessarily is the best use of public funds. I'm not certain that there's stability in what I heard on Wednesday, just as a guest in that meeting, of how that building can be used. I know that it needs to be fixed. I know it's only $20,000, but I'm going to be a no vote on that until things would be set into more of a established order with the relationship that we have with the volunteers, who's ensuring that, where the liability is. And I think it's going to create an undue stress on Chad's department. That was my opinion before I even heard him talk. I think we got to be aware of the tyranny of the urgent. I don't think that that's an urgent thing that I think it's urgent for some. I don't think it's urgent for the whole county. So I'll be a no on that. Thank you.
Anyone else like to address that particular item? Commissioner Mott.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just comment on Chad's frustration and just kind of give you an overview of what came out of the Parks Work Group thought process. We didn't feel like we had enough information on this to go forward, and I think Commissioner Toomey touched on that. I think he got that sense because I know we had an individual that uses the observatory here and obviously was passionate about it. It was as expected, and that probably prompted maybe the desire to have some action. But when we go to the staff in a work group or whatever and give them direction and then come out into a committee and do the actually opposite, it's kind of hard for them to trust us in those work groups. And so I just want to, going forward, if we do give them direction, because I think the direction we gave them in the work group was to explore this gentleman and the work group or the organization and see if they were interested in forming a 501c3 or something to put some skin in the game for this. Because I think the other aspect of this project is that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's more to this building than just this observatory beam, because if we're going to put money into this and yet need to put more money into it eventually for long-term, and I can't remember what we talked about, but I think that was touched on. So from my point of view, putting money into something that may not be there long-term is not a good use of funds as well. I know, Chad, you remember what was discussed on that?
Yeah, so the takeaway was that we didn't want to spend any money at that point. We didn't want to go forward with exploring. In fact, I texted the contractor that I had asked to start the process of getting some pricing for the beam and so forth during that meeting when you know the consensus was we didn't want to spend money on it. I said, never mind, don't waste any more of his time or their time on it. And I think Ethan has an update. We wanted some more information and stability, how serious they were about this. It's a small group that is very passionate about what they do, but it is our building to maintain. I did a little bit of research since that meeting the other day. So it was originally built March 1999. Director at that time, gentleman by the name of Steve Tuma. I don't know if Jackie's still here. She might remember him, but I don't know how many directors ago that was. Obviously, we've had some turnover in directors in the past few years, so that's a perfect example how things get deferred. Maintenance, it slips, and then here we are trying to rectify it however many directors later. Ethan's doing a great job of identifying these deficiencies and making it a priority, but we can't do it all at once. And just because one group comes and says, we're having an event, and we have no documentation of any agreement with that group. So that's what kind of prompted the whole conversation at Parks. And until we had some more information, we weren't going to move forward with it. So that's
And that's what I got, that's what I took away too. We're just not ready. We're not there yet. Maybe we do have a partnership, maybe we do go forward, but coming away from that, my understanding is this, we're not ready to make that decision.
And Ethan has an update. I think they spoke at the Parks, Friends of Parks about this last night. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, with all the turnover that we've had in the department, I mean, Jackie spoke on it a little bit as well. There seems to have been a misconception about what the group was and what it is. So they have been acting as volunteers. Last night, I did meet with Friends of Eden County Parks, and 2 members of the group were there. And everyone is in favor of these individuals joining the Friends of Eden County Parks. And the Friends of Eden County Parks have agreed to have a liability agreement for all the programming that this group does. So, I mean, aside from writing up a formal MOU or contract of some kind, I mean, they're pretty much ready to get the building back up and running. I mean, it's so.
Commissioner Shaver.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Are they going to be ready, would you say, in a month, 2 months?
I mean, they could do programs tomorrow if the building's operational. They had been doing programs up until we had the Parks Work Group meeting and said, no, we're not doing this right now. I mean, they were wheeling telescopes out and they were offering the programs. None of that ever really stopped, Their equipment is still in the building. It's just the fact that the building can't roll the roof off at this time.
And where administratively I walked out of that meeting my objective was to help them find some kind of formation so that we would be doing an MOU with a legally binding organization that can buy an insurance policy. And then in addition to that, giving them time to try and fundraise. So the expectation wasn't ever that they go raise $15,000 then come, but if they could raise $2,000 or $3,000, then they could come. And if we did a multi-year MOU with them, then they could try to pay for it over time. So then that way it's not just 100% millage funds going into a facility that we may have to demolish and rebuild 4 years from now as part of the strategic plan for Fox Park, or 5 years from now. Anyway, so that was part of what we had been preparing to work towards. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion. If they have their own liability, they can do stuff there. It's just until that beam's replaced at a minimum, they shouldn't be moving the roof, is the opinion of staff. Even if they have their own policy, we would still ask them not to use that until that's been fixed.
I would say too, just, I've had a lot of conversations with the volunteers for the observatory. And given the turnover, given the lack of communication over the past, 20 years, there were systems in place. This group had been making repairs. This group has been maintaining the building. They have been using sometimes their own funds to keep this building going, which they shouldn't necessarily have had to do. So I just, from their perspective, to have done all that and then have to fundraise significantly to get a building that is technically not their building repaired, I think is where some of the rub is. So I'm not saying that, moving forward, fundraising isn't a great opportunity and a great thing for this group to do for the observatory, because it provides a lot of really great programming. But, they have been doing the county a service. They have been offering these programs to the public. And I just want to make sure that we're being good partners with everyone that is associated with our department, because we have a lot of partners. And that's a great thing to have, because we're a small department and we cannot do it all. So that's what I'll say on that.
I will add that I was one of those that was opposed to repairing this, and then I had a lengthy conversation with a person that participates with this group. And she pointed out that not only is it something that our county residents benefit from, but we have other agencies that benefit from the information that's collected. And when I weighed that against the cost of repair, and to Chad's point, I understand this kind of throws it in your lap, and I think there's ways to remedy that too. But my thought was, we don't have a plan for that building right now as to the replacement of it. And not knowing what our millage may look like within 5 years, the cost of $20,000, and I did ask to cap that at $20,000, is minimal to allow this to continue on until such time that we come up with a different plan. So my other concern with that was the safety of it. As we said, that we wouldn't allow that group to use that building the way it stood. Well, if it's only $15,000 or $20,000 to repair, and it can be done hypothetically within 30 days, let's just do it and allow that to continue to operate for the next few years, or until such time something else comes up. So not to defend my position, but certainly I wanted to comment on the fact that, yeah, I was against the repair and now I'm for it.
Well, and if I could add to that a little bit too. As you know, we recently hired a new events coordinator. We recently hired a new naturalist. Jackie had mentioned that when the building was turned back over to the Parks Department around 2006, we had taken on that programming. After a while, these volunteers were the ones that were running the programming. We have the capacity right now and the staff that is willing to learn how to use these telescopes and incorporate some of the programming that they're doing into some of the other locations around our parks. Aside from just telescopes, they have equipment, they're called sunscopes. So you can take them out during the day and you can look at things in the sky that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do if we didn't have that. But my point is that we have staff that's interested in expanding our programming with these volunteers, and they're eager to learn. So by making this facility operational, we will be able to move forward with that.
Commissioner Mott.
So moving forward, let's say we do the repairs, what else has to be done to that building? I mean, is that doing that repairs to make the sliding, telescope work, is there anything else that has to be done? So let's say millage doesn't pass again and we're out of funds for that. We can't do anything to it. Is it gonna last for the next 20, 30 years? Or is there more things that need to be done so that it can be usable long-term?
Yeah, I mean, it's stood, we've had 2 tornadoes go through there and it hasn't, it's withstood that, other than just the rotten structural integrity of the beam there. I think he outlined in his letter a couple of minor things. I think some of the siding had got hit with a lawnmower or a rock or something like that, but that stuff's pretty minimal. For the most part, it's usable. It just, maintenance on it had been deferred, and that's where we're at today. It's the just the structural integrity of the portion that the roof rolls off of.
Okay.
And to find anything wrong or any deficiencies in the actual building itself without the roof, with the roof in place, I guess.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make that clear, because not everybody saw that report, so I just want to make sure that was discussed, so.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so what's the wishes of this board? Do we put this back into this entire budget amendment, or do we vote on it separately? Okay. All right, then what's your motion, Mr.?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move all the budget amendments except the second one on the sheet, which is the Parks and Rec fund for Fox Park Observatory. So I would like to move everything else except that one at this time.
Okay, moved and supported. Any other discussion along that line? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, now back to the Parks and Recreation Fund, and what is our consensus here?
I'll move the Parks and Recreation Fund for.
As written,
What's that?
as proposed.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Do we have a second? Commissioner Wright, you second?
Second?
All right, moved and supported. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition?
No.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote, just to play it safe.
Commissioner Shaver.
No.
Commissioner Haskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Pearl Wright.
Yes.
Commissioner Moudry.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes. Commissioner Barber.
No.
Commissioner Drosha.
Yes.
It passes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Now, Chad, I know the timeline is, and we're not gonna hold you to 30 days, whatever we can do, but is that something that our staff would have to do, or is that something we can contract out and still come in closer under that cap?
Yeah, I think it would be a contracted project. It's just a little too much for our staff to handle in-house. And like, when I give budgets like this, I hope that it's high. That's why it might be a little bit sticker shock at first, but I'd like to, I hope that it is, because then when we come back, I don't have to come back and say, I was, I lowballed it and I need more money. So the goal would be that we would come in under that, and generally I can get, 15, 20%, hopefully.
Okay, and I know Ethan sat down, but I'd like him to come back up to the podium, please. Ethan, in your discussion with the Friends of the Parks group, did they understand that we're looking for donations to pay back this, if they can? A fundraiser of sorts?
Yes, I mean, we did talk about gaining further donations for the Park Observatory. So, but I don't think we ever determined what that cost would be as far as paying that back.
Okay. All right, so they're amenable to it?
Yes.
We don't have a specific dollar amount for them?
Correct.
All right. Okay, as long as they're aware of that, because that was my suggestion Wednesday, that this be a reimbursement. We'll pay for it up front, and then they can pay it back. So it is a public building, but it's very limited in its use, so it's very specific.
Just because you will have one more time of looking at this, might I just plant the seed of maybe have them apply like a grant so that you have an agency under the Friends of the Park applying and you approve the funds there? Then we can lock in a repayment through that mechanism. It's just a thought. So you guys can consider that between now and the full board. It sounds like if the Friends of the Park is comfortable with it and you could keep it open-ended. I mean, this is what administration would have worked on with more time, but you have 5 years to pay 50% back type of a thing. Or,
I thought about
yeah.
that grant aspect, but in our grants through our parks program, we don't allow money to be spent on our own county parks. So is that something we need to look into before we come up with any language regarding that?
We could talk about it at the work group, but if you commit the funds, realistically, I would be shocked if they commit to me in writing that they'll pay them back if we've already committed to do the work. But I would be happy to be wrong. But I would just anticipate it's a sunk cost and we would probably expect we're not gonna get it back.
So just for clarification, this would not fall under that program that we already have for grants for our community parks?
It would not.
All right.
Because this is an external partner, but we might create a precedent where then you have other external agencies that do programming and use our parks that will start sending in letters and jumping into meetings trying to get you to fund
Right,
it
and
there.
that's not what that grant program was about.
No, I think it's definitely not.
Okay.
And this would be a one-off just for them, but anyway, I'm just talking about structure, your intentions to do it. If you want to get repaid for it, that's how you'd structure it.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Chad. Unless, Ethan, you had anything to add?
No.
Okay.
No, I think we got it all covered, so.
All right, thank you. All right, anything else on the budget amendments, Melissa?
No, sir.
No, okay. All right, we are now on to item 19, policy updates.
Very quick, purchasing will start meeting after the budget's adopted. We're gonna do more meetings in a shorter period of time, longer meetings, to try to knock out a recommendation that would come to Ways and Means and then go to the full board. On the back burner until that's done is the animal control work group, but those are the policy updates for today. And that should hopefully be sometime early November.
Okay, any questions for Ben? All right, thank you, Ben. Moving on to item 20, miscellaneous committee appointments.
This is included in your packet as informational only. The board rules say we will give you a list of all the appointments and those that expire in the month of August, so that's why it's in your packet. Next month, we hope to come back with a list of who is requesting reappointment, and then you can decide if you would like to advertise or how you would like to go about filling the positions later on in the year.
Okay, any questions for Claudine? I have a technical question, Claudine. I was approached with this question yesterday. If a person already holds an appointment on a board and they want to resume that, continue that, do they need to fill out that application again?
That's up to the committee whether they would like that
Okay.
application back again or not.
So to err on the safe side, we should just tell them to go ahead and fill out an application.
If that's your preference, yeah, we can have everybody do that, sure.
I think that would be wise. All righty. Moving on to county bills procurement.
Commissioner, before you move on, we do have an additional item under miscellaneous.
Oh,
that was
okay.
added.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
That was for the MERS delegates.
Oh, that's right.
So we'll have them in the packet. So the delegate for the board representation is Jeannie Pearlwright as proposed. Susan from my office and myself would be the staff that would go to the MERS conference this year. So that is the delegate. So the primary acts as a backup in case for some reason Jeannie's not available to do voting. And then the third is there to go to the educational seminars and figure out if there's anything that we can do above and beyond what we're currently doing to manage our benefits with them.
Jeannie, are you open to that?
Yes, I am, thank you.
All right, thank you.
In order to accept that, we do need to have it voted on and go to the full board for approval.
Okay, so we just need to move it on to next Wednesday's meeting.
Correct.
Any Well, we need a motion and a second. Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Commissioner Haskell.
What weekend is that, MERS? I know it's October, but
First week of October.
First week, okay.
See.
Gotcha. And is that something that, like, any member can go to, or do you have to be kind of like on a invite list?
No, I mean, we build into the budget to send, so I think we had even talked about last year, like the ability for you to go in addition if you had the availability, but the dates didn't work out. Melissa wants to say something too.
In order to be considered a delegate, you do have to be part of the program, but in order to attend the educational seminars, you would not need to be.
Yeah, and I'm not even looking to be like sponsored by the county. I'm just curious, like, if I were to show up, could I just walk in?
Yeah, we could register you and get you set up, so I can get you the details if you.
Just offline, that's fine.
Okay.
You might want to talk to Jeannie and see how long it takes and if it's very compelling. She seems to enjoy it.
I do.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? You are reconfirmed, Jean.
Thank you.
Enjoy. Now on to item 21, county bills procurement. Approval of our bills.
Move the bills.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Do we need to be, any highlights, Melissa? All right. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? It has passed. On to item 22, 26, 27, budget discussion.
You want to give a quick update? There's
If
not a
you'd
lot of
like.
significant changes. So you've got your budget projection before you. This is updated since the 24th. I think the only change is, well, the sum of what changes have happened was a slight reduction of revenue in the amount of low over $6,000, and then that forecasted through the remaining fiscal years, but very close to where we were at on the 24th.
There were additional changes regarding personnel as well, so we did see a little bit of increases in personnel. That's strictly because of employee turnover. Somebody chooses new health insurance rates. These are very typical for this time of year.
Commissioner Haskell.
There we go. I seem to remember seeing a higher number in our projected change in fund balance going forward. Looks like 28, 29 is like under $5,000. Is that, am I misremembering, or was there something that changed in the forecasting?
No, that is because of the increase in expenses for health insurance and other costs. That's that projection that has changed. That's part of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All righty. We need to move this forward.
No, this is just information.
Just information.
Does need to be moved.
Oh, it needs to get moved to the truth
Public
in
hearing.
budgeting public hearing. And then the other documents are the detailed roll-up to this.
Two other items, meaning the department head discussion, or elected officials and department heads.
Oh, I see. Not the documents. Okay.
So we don't need to take action on the budget then?
We will eventually, in this meeting.
In the next 5 minutes, or?
Whether that happens before department discussions is up to the purview of the board.
Well, we will move on then to item B and C, elected officials update. If we have an elected official who'd like to address this group. I see. Oh, there we go. It's all right. Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank, again, the members of this committee and the board in general for the vocal support of the millage, for the juvenile millage this year. With not only the renewal, but the restoration of the millage, we're able to sustain largely the services that we are able to provide to the young people and their families within this community. I'm very proud of the work that we've done over the past few years. I'm very proud of the voters for listening, because we did spend a lot of time, I know you yourselves included, going out and talking with folks about the services that we provide here in the community. I thought it was an important opportunity to be able to tell them how we're using their tax dollars. I'm really proud of the work that we've done thus far. I look forward to continuing that work into the future. And again, being able to restore the millage to its true value with the Headley rollbacks was a really important part of that. And I think, again, it speaks to the overall mission of this board to make what we do here sustainable. So again, I just wanted to offer the opportunity, or I was offered the opportunity to speak here, and I wanted to, again, thank everyone for everything that you did, because I know that many of you were right alongside us in those long meetings throughout the county over the last couple of months. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Any other elected officials?
Hello, Kim Morris, Eaton County Clerk, Register of Deeds. I know, Brian, you did a great statement first thing, saying not to discuss a budget decrease or whatnot, but I just wanted to talk to you regarding from me and my employees. So when that was first brought up, I was at early voting, and they were very discouraged on that talk. So I just want to give you a couple key points in case it's discussed after this elected official type discussion. I know we've all been through a difficult budget process over and over and over again. I've been here for 14 years, and I felt like my staff were finally off edge, right? Because we have a balanced budget. We opened up Fridays. They took that perfectly fine and adjusted things. Even though it didn't pass, a 2.5% cut across the board really doesn't equal for every department. I have 3 offices to deal with. What is 2.5% for us? You have to understand what we do. Election, vital records, we're with the circuit court, so just keep that in mind as discussions go on. We are supposed to perform a number of required functions with a budget cut or not. Those still have to be performed. Like I said, elections, we're still in the swing of August, we're still going into November, I'm trying to get ballots programmed, whatnot, and then dealing with this operations. I talk about my staff. We need to be careful and mindful that another reduction does not simply translate into asking for fewer employees to do the same amount of work that is required of them today, tomorrow, and yesterday. I'm not suggesting that my office or all of my 3 offices are immune from the scrutiny, but we should be expected to justify our budget just like every other department, and like you guys did before, what is needed, what is not, but just keep that in mind when you're doing an overall budget decrease, okay? If additional reductions are necessary, they should be targeted and supported by that analysis, which I think most budgets in the departments did do that analysis, but if it's reviewed again, please keep that in mind. And across the board, 2.5% cut treats every budget the same, even though the responsibilities and realities behind those budgets are very, very different. So that is my sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other elected official?
I will note Prosecutor Doug Lloyd couldn't be here today. He did speak at Public Safety, and he prepared a letter, which is also in the packet for everyone's review and consideration.
All right, thank you. All righty, on to department heads. Any department head would like to address this board? Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning. I apologize. I was not at Public Safety because I had a trip planned with my children. So I do want to thank you all for your continued support on the millage. In the past, it has been a lonely road tour by myself. And I loved all the support. So it was stressful, right? I think we were all stressed. Election day, very stressed. But, it was nice to have backup. And in the past, dispatch was trying to figure out how we could get to every meeting by ourselves. So with everyone's support, we were able to, if there was a few meetings we couldn't make because we had other meetings going on, we had the support of the county. So big improvement. Love it. Thank you for all your support. And I'm just happy that everything went really well. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other department head? Logan.
Yes, I'm going to be lazy, though, and use the mic in front of me, if that's all right. I wasn't planning on talking, so I apologize to Controller Dawson. I did draft a couple of points here. I understand that when we're talking about budgets, every position and function is fair game to examine. But I do think it's important, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about what my position actually is and does. There's been a through line in which I think it'll be 3 years next week that I've been here, that I am the board's PR guy, comms guy, website babysitter. I do a lot more than that. And though you guys, when my position was brought up, it was to be the communications director, but very quickly, that is not what I was. I did a lot more than that, and you saw fit to shift my official role and scope of work, and I appreciate that. It reflects more what I was doing. I am the county's PIO. I manage media relations and public communications, yes, but I also support this board and administration. I coordinate governmental affairs. I'm the primary on legislative affairs and appropriations. I assist with grants, outside funding opportunities. I work on policy and special projects across every office and department. So I think it's important to note that with my office of one, there is also a financial return to the work that I do. You know, when I started, I've said this before, I'd go to our state reps, our federal representatives, the departments at the state, and they'd ask where Eaton County's been. There's been a lot of money on the table that we just ignored because we didn't have somebody going for it. Now, maybe had we been going for it for the last several decades, my position wouldn't be necessary. I'm not here to argue for or against that, but I know that there's been a financial return for why I'm here. Roughly around $10 million in project funds from state and federal appropriations passed directly through with the work that I did and the work that the Controller's Office has done since I've been here. And hopefully we'll have more than that starting this next year. And so I just thought it'd be remiss if I didn't state that I am not the board's communications person. I am the public and governmental affairs director. I am the primary on a lot of things, and I hope to stay here, and I hope that whether I go or not, this position remains, because I think it's of value.
Thank you, Logan. Commissioner Shaver.
Is everybody done?
I do want to speak, and I don't know if there's anybody else in the audience, but, okay, if I can before we transition.
Go ahead, Andy.
No, I'll let him go first.
Go ahead, Ben.
So I just want to say, the board has done systemic changes. You've adopted a fund balance policy, which was a wild concept, but such a basic principle for a lot of communities. That is a structural step in the right direction. You, above that, allocated anything over that 10% at your discretion each year so you can use it for your priorities. And then anything above that, with administration, we set the parameters of what those funds can be used for. This year was mixed for salary studies, which is essential because we haven't done one for so long, but the bulk of it went to paying down the unfunded liability, which will be an ongoing theme. That is a structural change that's done. Because the reason it's structural, you want to change it in the future, you have to have a meeting like this. The public can show up, the public can lean on members of this committee, because anything that's made as a decision without a committee and a formal policy can be undone just as quickly, right? That's why we put that in place. The other thing that you have, I just want to talk about some comparisons that have been made to other counties. When you talk about administration at the Sheriff's Department, that's not talking about admin staff in the sense, I think, how people are construing it. We're talking about a property service officer and quartermaster for evidence management. You're talking about a detective to manage cases and criminal cases that occur within the jail, which is a constitutional obligation. We have an obligation to the court to provide courthouse security. We have to have transports to go pick up prisoners from other jurisdictions that are being ordered to court in Eaton County or have a warrant out. You have the administrative services captain that handles all of the hiring for both the jail, both for the Delta service, the Windsor contract. You have a model that this board has reviewed multiple times. If there are times to make changes, you can, but I think we need to start with how we talk about the structure that we have. And so I'm speaking on behalf of the people in that department. Talk to them about what they do. If you have concerns with it, I'm sure they're happy to share about it, but you're not paying for people to sit in a back room. These people are all working and they're providing services to the county in the structure we adopted as part of the structural framework. You want to compare our expenses on average versus other counties. Are you comparing across states? Not every state are pensions mandated protected benefits. So if I'm in a state where it's not, I can do a reduction and impact the wallet of retirees. Michigan's not one of those states. So as you start trying to do these comparisons, you have to start with acknowledging we made a benefit decision in 1992 that has haunted the finances of the county ever since. And we have made the structural changes to improve it, should have happened sooner. But you made the changes to claw your way out of it. So when you compare us to communities that never made a bad call 30 years ago, it's always going to look off. But we are making the steps to move forward, to come back. I want to speak to Logan. I added up the amount of state and federal grants we've gotten since I've come on board, which was only like 6 months before him. We've had almost 12 million move. Some of those were grants directly gotten by elected officials going to the Hill, but they still run through our office and we still manage them and the reporting and communicating on them. When you talk about structural changes, they're there. We just need to allow the time for this to play out. And you're gonna have some years, I'm happy to see you have a budget projection where you look at the projected change in fund balance. None of those numbers are negative. The prior year, almost all of them were negative. The fiscal year before that, and before that, and before that, going back decades, we always projected within 2 years that we would have a negative fund balance because we were using it to balance our budgets. You have a budget that has all of those numbers as positives. Do I want them to be more? Absolutely. Does every employee want that? Yes. But you have made a monumental shift in the way that you budget. So I just want to be clear, when administration talks about what we're doing, you guys have done a tremendous thing. It may not be fast enough or to the liking of what people want, but you're also simultaneously giving residents a tax cut. So you've committed to structural improvements on an unfunded liability. You're reducing people's property taxes on average, or on the median, almost $100 a year. I don't know how much more administration can balance what our objectives are apart from what's before you. I'm proud of it. I'll go to any meeting. I'll talk to any constituent. You guys, I swear, I will sit down for coffee with anybody. You should be proud of the work that you've put before you. And I want to see this continuing to get better every single year, and it will. There's a saying, ye who do good deeds don't grow weary, for eventually you will see the fruit of it. You are sowing good seed. So I just encourage everybody to stay the course. And again, I am available to anybody's constituents, any meetings. I've made myself very available for that. And I thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Shaver.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I don't think we'll grow weary in doing well. I think that it's important to always recognize how we might be able to do better. I agreed, with a large part of what you just said, Controller Dawson. I do think it's fair, however, to compare at some level, different aspects of services that we provide and what they cost with the surrounding area here, because they are underneath the same, limitations and structures that we are, although we've got some unique subsets here. I think that I think that the employees of this county do an exceptional job across the board. I think it was brought up earlier in this meeting about some of the failed millages where in listening to people, and to be clear, this is my first budget, right? This seat was vacant for almost the entirety of that process last year. And so I do ask a lot of questions, and I do have a lot of ideas. And, in my defense, I'm new, but I probably still will next year, because I'm always looking for the things that we can do, continue to do better. First and foremost for the voters that we represent in Eaton County, and equally for the employees, for the great things that are happening here. I think to look at the things that we can celebrate in the budget and celebrate are a good thing. I think to move too quickly past some of the concerns that are there are a mistake, and there's still things that we need to work on. In the light of those things, and comparing, and to the controller's point, I think there are things that in different county budgets are associated or added up, summated in the budget a little bit differently maybe than the one next to them, and that's okay. I understand that, but just looking at the broader numbers and the services that are provided, in this 26-27 budget, I would like to make a motion to reduce the sheriff administration portion by 1.5 million to a new total of $4,199,405.
Okay, moved and supported. Commissioner Haskell.
With that reduction, what positions are you specifically asking to be cut?
It's my understanding that we are not directly responsible for the position allocation of an elected officials department. And so it would just be, sure.
Any other?
The cut was 1.5 million, and I just went off of the current numbers that were in today's, so that would bring the total for sheriff's administration, also listed as command control, to $4,199,405. You're welcome.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yeah, realizing we don't choose what the sheriff does, but, to me, that's quite a bit of unknown, how it's going to affect, as we heard, all the aspects that the sheriff has to cover. Somehow I don't see all the ramifications that we don't realize to do this. So I don't know if I can support it.
Commissioner Haskell.
If we were to make this cut, Ben, how would this impact the ability to restore road patrol through contracts that do not exist yet? Is that known to you?
Well, you currently have a bench of officers and experience. So, for instance, we just had 3 retirements in the last 2 months, and so we currently have 4 people in the academy or going through the cadet process. And so, yes, there's a transference of skills from these wise and I'd say experienced officers that have gained that through years of work. So as we're training up the next generation of police officers, and if we do restore, say if we were able to get a contract for out-county coverage, let's just assume that that was possible. Public Safety Trust Fund comes through, the state gives a consistent dollar amount to locals, and locals come to us and say, we want to hire a couple deputies, and we negotiate something like that. And we'd have to do that in concert with Windsor and Delta, right, because of the provisions in that contract. These would be the people training them, or looking at, is there a transition phase where, what we used to do for transports and courthouse securities, we ran light on them because we knew we could pull guys off of the road fast enough that they could do that, and we had the capacity. Since we don't have road patrol, we have to have more in that because we no longer have a base to pull from. So I think if you phase that out, we all of a sudden have access to funds, or we have communities that want to do business. It's just going to be a lead time on recruiting and training. So even if they show up and they're ready, it might take 12 months to a year to get enough staff to implement the services.
And then furthermore, out of this area that we're proposing to cut, they provide constitutionally mandated services, correct?
They do, yes. I think, and that's for what it's worth, I use the term serviceable level, and I think maybe the context of that got missed the last time we talked about it. elected officials have a right to a charge of a county board of commissioners for a serviceable level to perform their functions. We've had very good relations with our elected officials in the past, but that is a statutory term. That is not a Ben Dawson preference of like what I consider optimal service. Like, you know, if we could get away doing it at 80%, let's do that to save money. That's just saying you do run a point when you're dealing with budgets with elected officials to where they have rights as well. So when I mention the serviceable level, they'll have to evaluate the 1.5, and this is why we usually do the cuts at the beginning of a fiscal year. So you give it to that office and you say, this is what we're looking for. They go through and say, I might be able to do it here. I can repurpose this FTE. Maybe I can, they come back and say, you asked for 1.5, I think I can do 800,000. Anything less than that, it's not a serviceable level. And then you guys evaluate if you think they've done enough, right? So that process takes time. Our truth and budgeting hearing is September 8th. So Melissa, help me understand. We pass a 1.5, sheriff comes back. This does not give him a public meeting to give a response and say whether or not he thinks the 1.5 is below the serviceable level. Let me walk that out a little bit further. Would we have to do a special meeting before the 8th? Because we need to lock in what the budget is before that public hearing, if that makes sense for you all. So I think that should probably be part of your motion, is working to schedule a special meeting so that the sheriff's office can respond back.
I can include that.
Does that motion still have support? All right. Any other questions, comments? Everybody understands the process. If this passes, this is not a done deal, Commissioner Shaver.
I understand it's not a done deal. I appreciated, Ben, your mentioning of 80% or something like that, and I know you're being anecdotal. Just understand this is, you're looking at 74% roughly of the budget for administration being left. So this is like a 25, 26% cut. If I'm doing the numbers quick, Melissa probably can do it better and even faster. Discussed over and over again, that portion of the budget is significantly larger than representative budgets like that in the surrounding areas. And that's all we have to compare it to, right? We can compare it to previous budgets, and I know that there were cuts that were made there, but the amount of investment that the taxpayers are making on a budget like this per the amount of FTEs is quite extraordinary. I believe that no argument, and so we can blame this on me being new, right? Because if I would have understood the process a little bit better, I guess I would have made this motion a few months ago. But I'm trying to listen as much as I talk, and anybody that watches these meetings know I talk quite a bit. So my motion still stands because I think that measures continue to need to be taken. I don't necessarily disagree with some of the input that we received on the 2.5%, but this is something that can be done. That will, and I believe that those funds should go directly into retiring that MERS debt further. That's be the only reason we would have to make a cut. This isn't anything that is done by me in any other interest than seeing us get to the place where we can restore road patrol as well as other services in this county in a quicker fashion. Thankful for the reports that we received again today from MERS. Part of the reason why I waited, because we were waiting a long time to receive those from MERS, not from you, Ben, but from MERS. So we've only had those for, it's been several weeks now, but not a long time. I think we received them the end of June. So yeah, I hope that there can be support for this. I know that I know that you guys don't have maybe as much appetite for cuts because you guys had to stomach all the ones from last year. I understand that. I still think that we need to make the right decisions going forward that's going to continue to right the ship into a place where we can provide the services that we want to for our county, as well as set it in a place where my kids and grandkids aren't having to deal with this further down the road. Thank you.
Any other comments?
So I was able to run some numbers just so that the committee members have this as well. So the current year budget right now for the Sheriff's Department for administration is the 5.69 million. Last year's, the current year adopted, or sorry, apologies. Current year's amended budget right now for the same department is 7.596 million. This upcoming budget represents 75% of that current year budget. So we are already experiencing reductions in their budget. It is also 79% lower of what was the actual expenses for 24-25. So I will say, to the sheriff's credit, they have reduced expenses in their administrative budgets. So I just want to make sure that we are acknowledging that that is happening already.
Commissioner Mott.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Controller Dawson, do you see, Sheriff's not here, so you can't speak on it, this affecting other departments as far as this big a cut?
I do. I think when I look at the obligations of his office, my assumption would be, one, he'd probably want to trim some of the courthouse security, which would lead to discussions with the chief judge as well, because they have a relationship where they work together to manage the safety of this building. And then the transports, and he'll probably tell you, because of the limited areas he can make reductions, Eaton County may just have to tell other communities when they pick up somebody that has a warrant for a crime in Eaton County that we're not picking them up. And that community would just, my understanding is, just release that person. So, and then, and to be honest, this is difficult because we don't break it out like that, but we put it in the presentation. 30% of the admin captain is paid with admin revenue from Delta, right? That's the other thing to keep in mind. We have a very large police services contract. When Ingham County tried to contract, nobody wanted to do business with them, okay? So we have a large administrative function that still resides here. So 30% of the administrative captains paid with admin. The property equipment officer, 30% of their salary is paid with admin, and then the training officer also 30%. That was part of what we negotiated with the Delta contract. Because it's general fund, it's not segmented in your budget. If we do a meeting like this, I'll try to get those numbers parsed out so you can really see it. So if you're looking at it and saying we're paying X number over, let's give acknowledgement to the fact that the Delta contract is paying a pretty sizable amount of that. So just for yeah.
Commissioner Shaver.
I just think there's a couple of things that are important to recognize. You know, there's been talked about, you know, potential future contracts, which I think would be great, but we've reached, I've reached out to the communities in my district, as well as been in meetings with some of the surrounding communities that aren't in my district, and they can't afford a contract with us. So I'm thankful for the communities that can, and I'm thankful that they get those services, but I think it's a little bit unrealistic to have if we build it or if we keep it in this sense. If we keep it, they will contract. I think if communities were able to contract, they would already be contracting. I think there's enough financial concerns in some of the communities that I represent that they're not going to be able to do that next year either. I still think it's appropriate to move forward with a cut to that, and I would be interested in a vote.
So you were good with the amendment do you want to propose August 28th? That'd be the last Friday of the month.
In order to meet the requirements for the public hearing, the
It's gotta be-
publishing of the public hearing,
Okay.
I would recommend that we do a special meeting before your board meeting.
So the 17th or 18th of August.
So we could do it potentially 5 o'clock.
Correct, yeah, yeah.
I am not an unbusy commissioner, and I don't have a lot of days left between August 30th. I mean, I'm just like,
I would actually recommend 5 o'clock on August 19th, Wednesday, August 19th. You will already be here for your 6 o'clock board meeting.
okay, thank you.
So the meeting before the meeting?
Yes.
You've done that before too in the past on different things, because
We do have a personnel hearing. I don't know when that would end.
Probably not by 5.
Probably not by
Not to project.
5. All right.
It would actually be up to you to schedule it and we can coordinate that at a later time.
All right. So,
To be clear, though, this motion, if people were to vote for my motion, it's not a done deal until we would have that meeting, hear back from you and the sheriff and whoever would come.
I think at this point, before we go ahead with the vote, and we will, it would be wise to corral all those that would be involved, because I would assume we would need someone from the courts, prosecuting attorney's office, as well as the sheriff's department for this discussion. Would that be correct?
For that meeting?
Yeah,
I think
for that meeting.
We'd build the agenda, but I think it'd be good to hear from principals that might be impacted.
All right. So then we will have to wait until we hear from those as to when they can all gather.
So we're not picking a date, we'll.
We won't
confer
pick a date right now,
really
although
quick,
we do have,
Assuming it passes, but we'll have to do it really quickly, so.
okay. All right, does everybody understand that? Okay, and this is a proposal, so we will move this proposal to, because we have a motion and a second on the floor. Do we have any further discussion on this proposal?
just before we vote, could you restate the?
The proposal, yeah, the motion. Who's recorded that?
My interpretation is looking for a $1.5 million reduction off of the sheriff's department command central and administrative budget with them to report back what that would mean, with the special meeting to be determined.
Commissioner Mott.
I understand what you're trying to do. I do, but it seems like we're just pushing stuff to the limit. We're at the end of this discussion, and this, in my opinion, this requires more than just one meeting. I mean, we know what they're gonna come in here and do and tell us. It just seems like we're being reckless. I mean, we're at the end of the budget, and we wanna just kind of blow this whole thing up and almost act like we're at the beginning of the budget. It's not that maybe it can't be done, I don't know. But it's like, to Commissioner Holmes's point, he doesn't know what you make a decision on. And I honestly don't think you're gonna have enough information out of that one short meeting to make a full decision. So I'm just telling you what it seems like to me. I'm pretty sure it seems like that to everybody here. It just seems like you're rushing a huge decision, and maybe they can cut, I don't know, but I don't think it's enough time out of the one meeting. That's just my opinion.
Anyone else? I think if we go into this meeting, and to Commissioner Mott's point, if we go into this meeting open-minded and say, is it possible to remove this amount or a lesser amount, certainly not more than that proposed amount, is it possible? I think that would be fair. That'd be a fair meeting. It'd be the same as meeting with any other department head. I don't know that I want to hold firm to that dollar amount. Because again, all we do is apportion funds to the sheriff's department. It's up to him to determine where those funds would be cut and whether we would be amenable to what he would suggest. Last thing I want to do is see them, for instance, as was discussed, would they pull staff from the court security? I don't think that's a good idea. I don't want to see personnel cuts. I understand your point, Commissioner Shaver, I do. And I do want this to come to a vote, but as long as we're with the understanding that we may not see that actually happen.
Understood.
Okay? Is that fair? All right, any other questions, comments, discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Shaver,
Yes.
Commissioner Haskell. No. Commissioner Pearl Wright.
No.
Commissioner Moudry.
No.
Commissioner Holmes. Commissioner Barber.
Yes.
Commissioner DeRosa.
I'll say yes. All right.
So
We don't have to
the
worry about
motion
scheduling a
failed,
meeting.
4-3.
All right, back to the budget discussion then. We're open-ended on that, correct? No, we need a motion, or no, the motion was on the floor already, to move this on to our commissioners meeting.
There was not a motion.
It was not a motion?
Should be motioned, yeah.
All right, moved and supported. Now we have a motion on the floor to move this forward to our commissioners meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition?
No.
Okay, I only heard one, so I don't think we need a roll call vote on it. All right, that brings us to our last limited public comment for this meeting. If anyone would like to step forward and address this board, you have it. I'm going to try to hold you to 3 minutes, but, you know, I was pretty liberal with the other ones.
Good afternoon now, Commissioners. Sorry I was late this morning. I wanted to take a moment to thank you for approving the reorganization to move on. I was in court this morning because that's what we do. I wanted to take a minute to respond to a couple things that I heard in the meeting today, both during public comment and during Commissioners' comments. And I say this as an employee. We don't have the staff. As to Logan, and I've said this before about Bo Logan, we don't have the staff to go out and fight for millages. And we're in the position we're in because this county, for the longest time, took the position to tuck our head in the sand and not say anything to anybody. And the people of the community don't have a clue, necessarily, what we do. And so it's important to have somebody to help us communicate better, because I'm not a social media expert. I'm not a communications expert. I have my own expertises, but that isn't one of them. I also wanted to bring up a cautionary tale, because I come from a prior life in a county where they got to the point where their pension plan had enough assets to cover the yearly costs of contribution. And that seems like a really fine place to get to. And then what happens is the county board takes those funds that they've been dedicating to those ongoing liabilities and they appropriate them someplace else. And then the market has a whim and your assets don't cover your liabilities. And then you set a hole where you don't have any funds to appropriate to cover those ongoing assets. So this idea that we should slash the budget now to get to a point where the blue line or the orange line or whatever it is, to where our assets earn enough to cover our liabilities, seems on the surface like a great idea. In practice, it creates many, many problems. The National Association of Counties, on their website, I like to cite sources, says that on average, counties spend about 70% of their budget on personnel. I'm not sure where the 50 or 55% number came from that we should shoot for, but the National Association of Counties says 70%. Found it right here, sitting in my computer in this meeting. Our office budget's more than 90% personnel. So to say we need to keep cutting without coming with specifics is not helpful. Administrator Dawson was absolutely correct that the competitive nature of the hiring market for attorneys makes it necessary to be creative in how we hire and how we compensate. We aren't competitively compensated regionally or compared to the private sector, or frankly, our office even compared to the contract defense attorneys doing work for this county. Generalized statements about cutting like it's canceling the cable account, is incredibly unhelpful and disheartening. While such statements may feel politically satisfying, they're making it incredibly hard for me, and I'm certain, I know for a fact, some of my coworkers, to continue to justify a decision to remain employed by the county. I would ask you to be kind and considerate in your comments made publicly about the employees of this county, because we deserve better.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address this committee? All right, seeing no movement, we are adjourned.